Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 236. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, Bingerang.
Connor's here too.
Yep.
This is a DC Comics podcast. We talk about DC Comics on this show. Everybody get together, we've read the books, and we discuss them. It's really quite that simple. Coming up on this week's show, we'll be discussing nothing but Future State books, because it was a Future State book week through and through. I think every other week this month has at least something. You know, next week has like Rorschach and or maybe one of the other things, one of the Black Label books, whatever.
I think Rorschach and Batman Catwoman next week.
Whereas this week, it's just all Future States. So coming up today, we got Future State Dark Detective issue 1, Future State Justice League issue 1, Future State Superman Wonder Woman issue 1, Future State Green Lantern issue 1, Future State Kara Zor-El Superwoman issue 1, Future State Teen Titans issue 1, and Future State Robin Eternal issue 1. Plus, Connor's going to hit a couple of his Patreon books this week. He's done Red Hood 51 and Detective Comics 1029, so that's what's coming up on this week's show. But of course, it's also a Solicits week. It is monthly Christmas, as some people might refer to it as. So we're going to be looking at what's coming out in April, and it does include a few new books, some which are interesting, some which are not, and we'll look into that very soon. That is a very Matt mug that just entered in the frame.
Yeah, that's Stitch. It's my guy.
Stitch,
he loves trouble.
Mine's very plain.
And it's also a massive coffee mug. So I needed it this morning.
Yeah, I knew it was from Lilo and Stitch, but I couldn't have told you if that was Lilo or Stitch, so I've learned something.
No, it's Stitch. Lilo's a little girl.
Yes.
She's wonderfully weird.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so I mean, it's all...
Oh, man. It's good. Connor, you've seen it, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
It's solid. It's not my favorite, but I mean...
No, it's up there with mine.
I get why.
You can see, I own a mug. Of course.
Yes, that is the benchmark of when something is entirely your job.
I have a Superman mug. I have a Justice League mug. I have a Stitch mug. I have multiple Bear mugs, because, of course. But yeah.
Well, if nothing else, Matt proved this week that he's a stunning self-parody. Did you not just get a Barbara Ann statue?
Yeah, I did. First comic book related statue I've ever owned, and of course it's it's not Superman or Poison Ivy or even Starfire. No, it's Barbara Ann, because I finally talked to my comic shop owner. Apparently the statue wasn't meant to be in the sale section, but because it's me and I've spent so much hard-earned cash and time in that shop, I got it for quite a deal. So that sits with the rest of my adventure stuff.
Well, I guess we're just done. 2020 was rough. 2021's not looking that much better. So I guess Matt's just trying to lift his spirits a bit.
Yeah, I mean, also, when my wife took down all the Christmas stuff, we realized kind of how not empty the house is, but like we have a lot of space that we can fill with things. So now I'm like, hey, what can I buy?
I get that, because every year I'm like, right, I got to move stuff to fit the tree in the corner of the this room, and then when it's gone, I'm like, I've just gained a corner. But then the problem is you fill it up, and then the following year, shit, now I've got to move shit again. It gets worse every year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just don't fill it back up with stuff. I mean, that's my simple premise. But hey ho. I watched a 40-minute analysis of the films of Zack Snyder earlier today.
Are we okay?
No, it was a good analysis. Well, it was okay. It was an analysis of why it doesn't work. So it was a good analysis. It was
you might need to link me.
Well, what was interesting about it is it's a good bit of analysis, because obviously I'm someone who thinks about movies and I think about storytelling and all these things, but what I always love when I'll find a bit of analysis from a perspective that I've never considered, that actually kind of finds a way to contextualize and vocalize something that I've always felt without ever understanding why I felt that way. But now I do understand why I felt that way, because someone's actually dug through it and said, this is why this is happening. Mainly the thesis of the whole thing was that none of Zack Snyder's characters are empathetic or matter, and they're all just predestined to die a horrible death, and maybe represents his outlook on the world. It was an interesting. It also went into heavily how his Dawn of the Dead remake essentially does to Dawn of the Dead what his Superman movie did to Superman, which is marvelous when you think about it, that he took a zombie movie and somehow found the cynical, miserable, soulless side of it. It's a zombie movie.
Didn't James Gunn write that one?
He wrote the first draft of it, but
okay, just the first draft, not the final.
Yeah, I feel like it altered a bit heavier. Like, people like to defend it and say it's satire. I feel like James Gunn's draft probably was satire.
Oh, 100%. Because there are things to James Gunn, script. I've seen Super and Slither, and Dawn of the Dead does not feel like either of those.
No. No, there was a supercut at one point. I can't remember the name of the channel, unfortunately, to actually point you in the direction on video, because since I'm mentioning it, but there was a supercut at one point of all the times in these various movies where a character says a variation of the line, "They're already dead," or "We're already dead," or "Krypton's already dead," and just how it writes off populations and people, and it just, everything's meaningless.
Yikes.
Therefore, it doesn't matter that Superman doesn't save Metropolis, and Metropolis, thousands of people die in the destruction because it looks cool. Anyway.
Right.
It's fresh in my mind because I watched this. I wasn't even planning. I was recommended, and I went, "Oh wait, I remember watching like this lady's previous analysis. I'm going to watch this," and then it was good. So
interesting. I watched theme park videos this morning.
That sounds very Matt. Did you hear Disneyland are taking away their yearly pass? So
I'm happy for that, because as someone that got priced out, and that park wasn't built for that kind of traffic. So the type of a person that would go spend 3 hours there. So like when I went to Star Wars Land last year, I had to put myself through a gauntlet of nerves to try to secure a boarding pass to get on the new ride. Normally, if under circumstances, I could have just been able to get on it, but because their annual pass program got so far out of control, one of the silver linings to 2020 seems to be they're reformatting it. So, as not that I'll be going there anytime soon, mind you, it's staying away from large crowds for a very long time. But still, it does make me happy, and to see one of my favorite posts was a guy I follow on Twitter went, "Oh no, legions of people are going to have to find a new personality." So that just cracked me up, because if you spend any time on the Disney park kind of social media landscape, there's those people that you're just like, okay, you have an annual pass, what else about you? Nothing? Okay.
It reminds me of people who are obsessed with Apple products.
Let me check my Apple Watch while you look at my iPhone and iPad. Talking through my Mac. Not that I'm obsessed, mind you, but
as long as you've never waited in line for a midnight launch of a new iPhone, Matt, I'll respect you.
The only thing I've ever waited at midnight for are movies, and even then, it's pretty okay. Anything else can wait. Like, I'm not doing that.
That's because your iPhone's not going to get spoiled if you get it 12 hours later.
True, and it might even be better, right?
Yeah, the firmware update might have
exactly
fixed it by then.
Well, and it's like this Apple Watch I got from my dad for Christmas, along with the AirPod Pros. It's the first time I've gotten the newest thing, but that's because it was a gift. If I'm buying it myself, I like to see other people, go through.
Make sure it works all right.
Yeah. So, and so far so good. But at the same time, I'm not an early adopter that much. As I said, as I talk to you on like a 13-year-old computer, that's just barely hanging on. It's been barely hanging on for 2 years, and we're going to keep it as long as it can.
I look forward to when it eventually dies and Matt buys a new computer, and just how different he's going to look and sound in the following week's podcast. It'll just be all of a sudden things will change because his computer's just jumped about 15 years into the future.
I've had it since before I moved, but because this computer still worked, I'm not setting it up, So and it's a laptop, so it's a little bit different. But I have used it when we did a project that I don't think ever saw the light, when we did the Spielberg thing.
Oh yeah.
We recorded on that, and I had to set it up in a certain way so it matched. But yeah.
Yeah, okay. Why did you record that in the laptop? Why was that different?
Something was going on with the computer and I couldn't get Skype to work.
Okay, so it wasn't like a reason. It was just like tech issues.
It was a tech thing, and I had a window that I had to get done in, so, and it was that or nothing. But,
yeah.
It'll eventually happen. I already know. It was making weird noises this morning when I came in because I just keep it on sleep. Because I'm afraid if I shut it off, it won't turn back on.
I know that feeling.
The month before my computer died, because I'd probably over the 2 or 3 months before, I'd had to delay a couple of recordings with Pete, like, hey, it's not turning on. It's giving me this problem. Usually when it tried to auto update when I was out of the room, and it got to the point where I didn't trust it not to turn on, because it would take about 7, 8, maybe 12 attempts to turn on.
Oof.
And it would take like 5 minutes, but it would get there in the end. So I'd be like, all right, fine. But for like a month, I was just put it in sleep mode. It's like, nope, you are hibernating. Yeah. You are not going off. Do not trust you.
This guy.
And then it auto updated and screwed me over, didn't it?
Yeah, because that would usually happen with Skype. Where I'll have to be like, guys, I can't remember my password. Give me a couple of minutes to log back in. So, but yes.
Well,
eventually.
With that all said, that is getting to DC Comics solicitations for the month of April 2021. So this is month 2 of Infinite Frontier, I guess. But this is mostly the same as March with a few new number ones. We'll go through the solicits here and see what's new. Obviously, a lot of the new stuff's at the top. So we'll get in. Obviously, some things are more exciting than others. But we are starting off with the Green Lantern number 1, which makes sense because there was no Green Lantern book announced for March. So this is written by Geoffrey Thorne, who is the writer of the main story in the Future State issue, which we'll be talking about later today. But art by Dexter Soy, which is pretty cool. And this is a $5 book with a backup, and this is John Stewart leading, but joined by Teen Lantern and Joe. So it's an interesting mix of characters in this one.
It's yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're getting another one. I mean, as cool as this is to have those characters with John, like, I kind of want, what's Jessica and Simon up to, right? Like,
yeah, I think we're at a point now with Green Lanterns where there's enough of them, enough human Green Lanterns, 6, 7, 8, if you include Teen Lantern and Joe now at this point, where we're all invested in different ones. So there's almost, no matter who they pick, there's going to be a portion of the Green Lantern fan base who are annoyed that theirs are not the ones to get in the spotlight. So,
which is great when there was 2 books, when you had Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern, right? Like, you can differentiate. And even like something like Green Lantern Corps could have been a rotating, until Tamaki took it over. That was kind of the idea, there was a rotating cast that they could go through, and then they decided to go make it a companion book to what Jeff Johns was doing in Green Lantern. So, but no, I mean, this is cool. We'll get to thoughts on Thorne's Green Lantern later.
Right, and just a question, Pete. You mentioned there that there's a backup. Where are you seeing that? Because I'm aware it's $5 and there's an increased page count, but there is no mention of a backup. There's no mention of a different team. Nothing in the text.
All right, calm down. I saw $5 and 40. I didn't expect to be grilled like by this ginger over here with his magnifying glass out.
No,
I didn't know if you'd seen it in a different article somewhere and it just wasn't in the solicit for some reason.
Jesus Christ! Right, it's got more pages and it's $5. I assume backup because that's what all the other books are doing. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's fine. I wonder if it's just an oversized first issue then, or if it'll be like this.
It may be. Yeah. Amusingly, I don't think this solicit text even mentions Joe. That wasn't a different article though, because the article I saw this announced this on Newsarama did mention Joe as being in the book. So I wonder if maybe a backup starts in issue 2 with Joe, and that's where that's coming into it.
Possibly. Yeah, I'm just skimming that article now. It says the publisher is promising the addition of the Far Sector star later in the series.
Oh, there you go. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's maybe not the perfect Green Lantern book that any of us were hoping for. However, that could come later. There's no reason why we can't have a second Green Lantern book in a couple months' time, especially now that Grant Morrison's Reign of Terror has come to an end. So,
Reign of Wonder, maybe.
Oh yeah, says the guy who wouldn't keep up with it to talk about it on the show. Yeah, despite the fact that he liked it so much. I
do like it.
I get that, because there's that's how I feel about Far Sector, but the breaks in between, this will read better
Well, yeah, but that was only because of the break, so that would have been fine. If that stayed monthly, there'd have been no issue with First Sector.
Yeah, probably.
Right, it was just a case of I fell behind 1 month, and I knew it was kind of what you're saying there. There was a break. There was like a 2-month break for me, and I just I fell behind, didn't catch back up in time for the show.
Okay. Well, that's Green Lantern issue 1. So we'll see how that goes. We're getting Robin issue 1, another ongoing series. This is a regular $4 price. This is Joshua Williamson writing with Gleb Melenkov on the art. This is a Damien book. He's got a new outfit. In fact, I think I've read that he's got several new outfits, but he's got one in particular here that's on the cover. It's more black with hints of red and grey. So yeah, I'll read the solicit text for this one. After learning of Dead League of Lazarus tournament, Damian Wayne has a new mission, winning the tournament to prove that he is the greatest fighter in the DC universe. But first, he must find the secret island where it's all going down. It sounds like Mortal Kombat. The brand new solo Robin series will force Damian Wayne to find his own path away from both sides of his family. New mysteries, new supporting cast, first appearances of new characters, and lots of fights. Okay.
I'm so here for this.
Well, that definitely fits in with Melnikov's ethos on art after the Twitter debacle over the last few weeks.
Wait, what was this?
Oh, I don't know if maybe you guys didn't see this. There was a page from, I don't know if it was Venom or King in Black, one of the recent issues in that story, and whoever the artist was, there was like 3 pages of talking head. It was kind of like head to camera, like one person like interview, sort of like a lot of panels on a page with just slight movement, interaction, changes, facial expressions, and Melnikov kind of tore it down as, oh, this is terrible. 3 or 4 pages of this shit. It's like, where's all the action? This is a superhero comic. And people, quite rightly, tore him a new one, being like, we got room for both things in comics. Don't need to, just be the one type. But, he's very clearly in the lots of action splash pages camp.
Well,
so that, lot of fights fits in with that, I guess.
Well, we'll see if I'll see what I think of his philosophy when I read this book come April.
We've had his art in a few books over the last few months, and I think we've all enjoyed it well enough.
Yeah, but I don't remember what books he's done before. I remember the name, so I know I've read or seen some of his art, but
he's done Buffy and Angel stuff a lot, Pete. So I'm sure you've seen it.
I probably have.
I think he did. I think he did all the opening Angel stuff with Hill.
Batman the Outsiders 13, Batman Superman Annual, Wonder Woman 754, Ginny Hex Special.
Yes, there's definitely examples here that I have read. That absolutely has been. But I don't remember any of the art in any of these books. I mean, the most notable one there is probably the start of the Angel book. I mean, and I don't remember it.
Frankly, however many years we are now into a comic book review, maybe you should remember the art a little bit better.
Well, no, that's just a point I'm making. I'm saying that the art was not memorable. Not every art I look at is memorable. Do you know how many artists we see on a weekly basis? Some of them don't stick in my head. Some do and some don't.
I mean, lately it's been a whole lot versus traditionally because of the 80-pagers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so no, I disagree with. I just disagree fundamentally with what Connor's saying here. He's trying to critique me for not remembering artists. I do remember art when it's knowable.
I mean, we always remember JR.
I mean, we do, not for the good reasons.
Yeah, there's no arguing with that.
It's like remembering a car wreck.
Yeah. The point I was trying to make was that, given that he said this now, I'll keep that in mind when I see his art again. But Connor took it as, oh, we've read books by him before. He's done art in books, but as if that's what I was trying to say, that I've never seen his art before. Why? What was with his?
I remember his name because it's Gleb. It's a very memorable first name.
I always remember it whenever Pete says it because he says it wrong every time.
Gleb? What's wrong with Gleb?
No, his surname. It's Melnikov, but you always say Melkinov, I think.
No, Melenkov.
All right, Melenkov. But either way, I know in my head, I'm like...
It transposes the N and the I.
Yeah.
Either way, sounds also like Iron Fist in Damien, and this is the Damien that I love. Him just going off, getting into shenanigans. So...
I'm interested to see, because this is the first time there'll be a solo Robin book that's not Tim.
No, there was Robin the Boy Wonder that that Tomasi did. It's where the Bat Dragon came from. End of New 52. It's like,
was that not just part of the Batman and Robin stuff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it spun out of that, but it was a Robin book. It's the first Robin book since then, though.
Oh, fair enough. Well, I'm obviously misremembering that one.
Yeah, I actually do like. I mean, I like Damien. I've typically liked Williamson. Well, I mean, obviously not everything he's done. His Flash run did have its spotty parts, but
yeah. But this feels to me more like his Batman Superman stuff we were enjoying. You know, like there's a level to this where like there's a secret underground fighting ring on his island. Like Pete said, it's like Mortal Kombat, but at DC. So like, who are we getting showing up? It's not just going to be all new characters, right? Like, if you look at one of the covers, Ravager's on there. So I was like, is she there? You know, is Shiva going to be there? Are we going to get to see Cass? Like, what is this League of Lazarus? You know? So that's exciting.
Good questions, but yeah, so a couple of good covers there for that one as well. Next up, we have a new miniseries called Batman the Dark Knight, 6-issue mini, which will notably be written by Tom Taylor with art by Andy Kubert. So we have a Batman arc coming from Taylor in the form of a mini, regular size, regular price. I'll read the description here. I'll skip this first part. That's just like, the legendary writers of blah, blah, blah. A horrific tragedy in the United Kingdom sends a very personal and deadly message to the Dark Knight, one that will draw Batman out of Gotham City to investigate. From the moment he lands in Europe, Batman will face a difficult investigation and unheard of adversaries and find the assistance of a partner once more, all in the hunt for a villain known as Equilibrium. New villains, new allies, a thrilling overseas adventure begins for the Dark Knight, starting with an extra size 26-page debut story. So it's still a regular price, but there's a few extra pages.
It's nice of them.
Yeah. So DC starting to feel like DC post, like, what was it, Brightest Day?
Sure.
Like, right after Blackest Night, they started rolling out like books that, like, we had a bunch of miniseries that we hadn't had before, and just I don't want to say weird stuff, but unusual. So like Batman in the UK, outside of Knight and Squire stories, I'm not, you know.
I was gonna say I can't really think of any.
No,
except to do with Knight and Squire.
I was going to say this: if Taylor doesn't title one of the chapters, like one of the issues, "An American Batman in London," I'm going to be upset.
Well, we should tweet that at him. You know, like, we don't want credit. Just like, hey, bud, just make sure what we expect.
Yes.
Yeah. Just hey.
He's got time. He's got time to change some like titles of chapters for later in the run.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
And it could even be issue 5. We don't care.
Just it doesn't matter. It could be anything.
So I was a little disappointed when his project he was hyping ended up being Batman, right? But then I heard the premise. I was like, this is Batman I like, so I really can't complain, because this is Batman outside of Gotham doing something different.
Yeah, honestly, the thing
any Batman by Taylor is Batman that we like.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, but
the thing that sticks out. The thing that sticks out to me about this, though, is that between this and Nightwing, it feels like Taylor's kind of climbing the ranks of the Bat family books, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being like he's being groomed to be the one who takes over Batman from Tynion when Tynion's ready to go.
And that makes sense. I mean, he also did that Black Mask during the Year of the Villain. That was pretty readable. I don't know if either of you. I don't remember if either of you read it, but I know I did.
Yeah, it was tied.
I think we all did because it was Taylor, right?
Yeah, okay. it tied in heavily to Suicide Squad. So.
Well, eventually, we didn't know that at the time, though.
We didn't know at the time, but eventually it tied in. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I will say, I think Tynion mentioned recently he has a 3-year plan on Batman. Obviously, that's sales permitting that he doesn't get dragged off it, but he has a 3-year overarching plan split into individual yearly plans as well, in case he only gets, because they renew him for a year at a time, basically.
Right.
So we've got a while yet before they need to replace him again, barring sales dropping.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen anytime soon, but it kind of feels like he's like maybe not second, because typically I suppose the writer detective is kind of the second, creative force on the Bat family books, but it feels like he's kind of one of the stable parts of the Bat family squad now, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, with Nightwing as well, he's going to be writing Babs as well in that book, so it definitely feels like he's pretty integral to the family as a whole, if not, Batman himself for the most part. This mini aside.
So yeah, that's Batman: The Dark Knight issue 1. That's starting in April. 6 issues. So that is cool. Then next up here, I'll mention this, although because I think we do have to actually talk about this and maybe start to think about how we consider covering these things. Because next up here we have the next Batman Second Son, which is I think it's the origin story. I'll read the text in a second, but if I remember rightly, I think it's an origin story. Yeah. For the next Batman, which of course is what's going on in Future State. And we were all very impressed with that first issue last week. So John Ridley's back writing it. We have art by Tony Akins, Travel Foreman, and Mark Morales. This is going in physical form. This is going to be 4 issues, but in digital, because it's a digital first, and in digital form, and the digital will start in the next couple of weeks, if not this week. In digital form, it's 12 issues. So each issue of the physical is 3 issues of the digital, each one being about 40 pages, which would mean that the digital is about 13 pages each, give or take. So the physical issue, the first physical issue is out in April, right? Hence it being in the Solicits. The digital chapters start rolling out, like I say, in February, or maybe this month. It was soon. It was very soon. It was much sooner than the physical book. Because I do think there's an interesting discussion to be had here about some digital books starting to feel a bit more important, like they're actually relevant to things going on. And probably the most important before now was the Deceased sort of tie-in series that Taylor was also writing. And we kind of we looked at the first couple of those and we kind of fell away very quickly because these digital chapters that are 10, 12 pages tended to feel like they didn't have enough to talk about. But if they're going to start feeling more important and they're going to start feeling like they're genuine continuations of things that we already like, and in the case of this one, we all loved that first issue last week. It does beg the question of how do we sort of fit this into some sort of format. Do we wait for when the physical issue comes out and just sort of, even if we're reading it digitally, just wait and do the 3 issues when the physical one comes out? Because it's more of a conversation at that point. Because I do worry that the 10 or so pages is always going to feel like too little.
It's possible. It starts February 23rd is the first digital issue. I don't even know what day of that week, day of the week that is in regards to when we record. Because I mean, that could be, for all I know, a Saturday, which would really be a problem. It's Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah. So it does raise this interesting thing where I really like the concept of this, and I want to read more of this next Batman from this writer. I'm not a big fan of the 10-page, 12-page chunks, though.
No, I'm okay waiting until physical. You know, or one piece. You know what I mean? Versus the.
Yeah, I think it might be the new idea going forwards. Is what we'll do, even if we're reading it digitally, is to wait until the physical one comes out and read the 3 chapters as if we were reading the physical book.
Yeah. This has reminded me of like a sub story that kind of annoyed me this week, and because in this announcement of the digital series, they also announced the Batman by John Ridley Deluxe Edition, which will collect like all the stuff so far, from
all the Future State,
Future State, the Batman Black and White story that's coming up, the Joker Warzone one. But it says it'll also include a new original story by Ridley and Dustin Nguyen. And I'm like, that feels really shitty that there's an exclusive thing to that where if you bought all the other stuff already, you have to redo it.
Well, and then that's why they're having you get the extra.
Right. And I was like, okay, but at least I can kind of maybe justify double dipping because, okay, it's a deluxe edition, right? But then there was a second one where there's the Harley Quinn digital series that's been going recently.
Black, White, and Red.
Right. That's also getting physical editions soon. Not straight to trade. I think it's getting single print issues.
Right.
But they're also going to be including new stories that weren't released digitally in the single issues. And I'm like, that feels particularly shitty for anyone who got the digital first and then it's like, actually you didn't get the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, the trade's an interesting one because at least I suppose it's kind of like, okay, you've read all the singles digitally and maybe you still might be interested in physical books, so you still buy some trades. It's maybe like an extra bonus of, okay, if you're going to rebuy the trade of this digital series, at least you get a bonus as well, so there's an extra incentive. But that's particularly weird, though, that the single physicals are also going to get bonus material over the digital singles. And, it's like, okay, digital arguably is the more important one because it's coming first and you get it exclusively early. But then they're saying, but the physical one's going to get extras that you don't get.
I also feel because
with that format in mind as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel it costs them more to produce a physical, right? Versus just a digital. So they feel like they're going to have to add something to that to justify instead of just printing it. Which, I mean, business practice being what they are, as a fan, that kind of sucks. As like Connor said, you've already purchased this. If you're a big Harley Quinn fan, right, and you're buying red, whatever it was, black, white, and red, you know, or black, yeah, it's black and white is the Batman one, right?
Well, black, white, and red.
Black, white, and red.
Yeah. I got hung up on the order. Anyways, you know, why are you gonna have to buy another single issue after you've just bought it?
Yeah.
You know, but again, it's it just it doesn't impact me. I'll say that much.
Yeah,
you know, like
honestly, yeah. I mean, it would have to be something particularly special to even make me consider double dipping.
I believe the Harley one of the new exclusive stories, is a Paul Dini one. Which, if you're a fan of Harley enough that you're buying this digital series, you're probably in for the Dini stories, right?
But I do feel like what's going to be the price difference between them? Is it a $3 book?
So I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so and all those issues, the digital first are all 99 cents, right?
Yeah, but at that point, it feels shitty that okay, even like if they're releasing them in the trade or whatever,
right?
Why not just put these up? Like save them till after the trade comes out. If they're all right, you're exclusive to the trade, so then put them up after digitally anyway. So so it's not digital first, but they can still get it without having to double dip on the entire.
Yeah, it's a standalone for a couple of dollars. You can get the extra story. Yeah, it's murky. It's just
it's almost the video game. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not in games like you guys are. But I remember hearing about like having to buy pieces of the game, so it's just not enough to get it at launch. Then they hit you with the expansion stuff.
Depending on what game that's a fair question on some games.
It's kind of, I'd say, honestly, a better comparison might just be when they release a movie over and over again, but they keep adding more cuts and more extras.
Yeah,
and
well,
more...
it's every time they release Back to the Future on Blu-ray or whatever the next one is, and they added never before seen Eric Stoltz footage, and I go to my wife, hey, she's like, you already have it on Blu-ray. All right, I will do some digging. Scrounge up this never before seen footage.
It's like 3 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, but not enough to justify the $60 box set, but I needs it.
Just wait for the 16K hologram edition. Of the next purchase. So I mean, it's an interesting point that how they're incentivizing this, but I think for this, my gut instinct for the show is to say, okay, we'll do issue 1 of the physical book, even if we're reading it digitally. We'll just we'll read the 3 digital chunks that make up the first issue and talk about it that week.
Think it's almost like case by case. It's like I almost want to read the first digital issue and see, is there enough to talk about in this, or is it going to be okay? We'll wait, because there might be some of these where no, it's better to read it digitally. I just don't know. I
mean, there may be, but I think as long as they're because I don't know why they've decided that digital books should be only 10 pages. And even then, a lot of them, because of the formatting for the tablets or whatever, feel like 10 half pages rather than full comic pages.
Yeah, I wonder how this is going to be formatted.
Yeah, so I think as long as they insist on them being much shorter than regular comics, it's a really awkward thing for us to cover because the format's just so kind of weird and chopped up. But given that they're bundling this as physical issues later, it does give us kind of okay, this is at least a blueprint to follow. In the meantime,
we haven't even got that with the Deceased book, have we? Like, it's still just strictly digital.
Yeah, they didn't do a physical. Maybe they'll do like just a straight to trade at some point.
Yeah, and if they do that, that's cool because I'm gonna need it for the rest of my Deceased. Yeah, But no, it was very even in that format. It's just they're pieces of a meal. It's like you can have a bite of that burrito, but you can't have the whole thing, and it's kind of irritating.
Because I mean, I love Taylor's writing. I mean, obviously we go on about it all the time, but even with Taylor, I was reading those early Deceased. I read well enough, but it was feeling kind of unfulfilling. I got to the end of one, and I was like, well, okay, that felt like a little bit of something, but So.
Also, a secondary conversation in this too about can DC stop spoiling themselves in Solicits? Because I don't want to spoil people that just don't know. Because please,
we spoke about it in the book last week, and it's actually annoyed me more over the week since. Especially speaking to people who hadn't seen that news before, read the issue and had absolutely no clue, and then saw this announcement and were like, "Wait, what?" And it's completely, completely changed the impact of that story.
Yeah, to make it clear what we're talking about here, The first issue of Future State Batman did not actually make it clear. In fact, if anything, it intentionally misled, or at least left it 50-50 ambiguous as to who the Batman actually is. But the announcement before the book told us who it was, and this title, I mean, the next Batman's second son, even the title itself is kind of saying, hey, it's not the one you think.
It's right there in the text and in the headlines of articles of...
Well, but it's also annoying when you read Future State Justice League and they go, we don't even know Batman's name. So clearly there was some edict, like, let's keep this a mystery. And yet they're throwing it in the solicits and like in headlines. And it's just, that annoys me because I just remember the big one was when Marvel spoiled Human Torch's death. That's something that Hickman was leading up to and was meant to be this emotional, and they led with it the week before.
It's so infuriating, isn't it?
And as someone that likes to take in stories as they happen, that sucks.
This one bothers me more, I think, because it's not even like it's a big death that they're worried about spoiling for other people. It's like they could have just not said anything. And the more it's gone on, the more it's annoyed me with, let's say, in that story where we think it felt 50-50 or ambiguous because we know who it actually is, so we're projecting the reality onto it. If you don't know, there is not a single hint of who it is. There is not a single hint as opposed to it's this person. It plays it completely straight if you don't have that projection going in. And presumably that's the intention it was written with. So it really annoys me that they've just kind of ruined that like this.
All right. Well, in the interest of getting the solicits done within an hour, let's move on swiftly to these other books. So we got the Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 1. So this is a new. Is this a one shot? Is this an ongoing?
I think it's a new. Scooby-Doo series because they closed up the last one. Not that long ago.
Scooby-Doo and Batman team up. I mean, I grew up with both of these things, so I can't not smile at the prospect of it. But
I mean, Batman crossed over on Scooby-Doo back in the cartoon Hanna-Barbera days. So like
they've had a bunch of comics like that over the last couple of years as well. But this one's, I think, the specific thing for this one is it's they time travel back to Batman Year One time.
Oh boy, Scoob's gonna get into some trouble.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would expect. Another digital first being collected, I believe here is a physical release, and that is a Challenge of the Super Sons issue 1. This has already been coming out, I think, digitally. This is Tamaki writing again with Max Raynor on the art. So this will be 7 physical issues. This is the first of 7, so that's coming out in April. You mentioned it earlier, but the Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red trade paperback is next on the list here, so we can just go past that now.
I must have been right. I must have been straight to trade with the exclusive content, not singles.
There you go.
Yeah. And then we have Ruby Justice League issue 1, so that Ruby thing that I don't understand is back. So this is Marguerite Bennett writing with Aneki on the art, 7 issues. And we'll move on because I don't know what it's saying, but it's just some weird anime thing or something, I don't know. And then, so the actual rest of the DC books. Action Comics 1030. Philip Kennedy Johnson is still writing the book, but this is a new chapter. I assume at this point on we're switching to just arcs for each book rather than crossing over constantly.
I believe so, yeah, because this one mentions here War World Rising starts here, which feels very tied into what's going to be coming up in that Superman Future State issue, because I think that's all War World focused, right?
Yeah. I think it's even not even because the Future State issue doesn't even have Superman in the title. It's just War World something or something like that.
Oh, is it? Okay, and that's Philip Kennedy Johnson writing that one as well, I believe.
I think so. Yeah. The backup going forward in action is going to be a Midnighter. Well, at least this issue is. Maybe it's not going to be continuing. It could be a one and done, but Midnighter backup.
That's what we're learning after Robin, right? Is that we thought that was going to be the backup, but it's just the backup in the first month, and the Batman and Detective books. So
clearly, some of them are going to be ongoing, like Justice League Dark. Some of them are going to be one and dones. Some of them might be like minis, where they have like 4 parts, but then they move on to something else.
Which I like. I feel that's how you should do backups, right?
What's really interesting on this backup is it's still referring to Future State. Like it talks about Midnighter trying to swap with the Future State Midnighter, like time travel stuff. I imagine. Interesting.
Interesting. Superman is up next here. This is Superman issue 30. They really should just put that back to legacy numbering at this point. It just feels kind of weird that it's down at 30 when, because it got renumbered for Bendis after Rebirth, and
Right.
it just kind of feels like, just put it up to like 700, 800 something, whatever it is.
They'll flip it when it gets to a landmark number.
Just go for it. The backup story is Tales of Metropolis, Return of Ambush Bug, which was hinted at. Bendis hinted at this at
Yes,
the end
he
of his
did.
run with the Ambush Bug return. Actually, that's Superman in Action Comics. American Vampire 1976 issue 7 is coming out. Batman 107. Obviously, this is still Tynan. The backup is part 1 of Legend of the Ghostmaker, so this is an arc about Ghostmaker in the backup, which I'm sure excites everyone.
Skip.
Excites everyone dearly. But good news is, though, the art is Jorge Jimenez on the main story. Because the art's been up and down on Batman, depending on who it's been. So nice to hear. And March is busy with the other book, so March isn't on the.
He's stuck on Joker, I think.
Yes. Batman Black and White issue 5 is coming out again. Whole host of creators: Jorge Jimenez, Mariko Tamaki, Jamal Campbell, Kieran Gillen, and Lee Weeks. That's the writing list for the record, because some of those obviously are notably artists who are also on the artist list, but I'm making it clear that's the writer list. And then Jorge Jimenez, Emmanuel Pacino, Jamal Campbell, McKelvey, Lee Weeks. So interesting.
Yeah, obviously on a personal level, this became my most anticipated book of the next few months, because there's a Gillen and McKelvey story.
It's an 8-page.
Their first DC work.
It's
ever.
an 8-page story. Who cares?
Don't care. That's enough for me to start. This is the foot in the door like we got with Zdarsky like a year ago.
I hope it's good. Right? I'm not going to read it, admittedly. But if they end up writing more actual DC books, I hope it's good.
That's fair. I actually really like every member of the creative team on that issue. With a lot of these like anthology books, there's usually like one or two where I'm not familiar with or I actively dislike, but this here is a really solid list of creators.
It's not bad. The first issue, I was really not hot on. I only really liked one of the stories, so I mean, I kind of just opted out of Black and White at that point. But maybe good. Speaking of anthologies, though, Batman Urban Legends issue 2 is up next. This is the anthology, all the Gotham-related family stuff. Katana's got a story. Barbara Gordon's got a story in this one, which I don't think she had in the first one, so that's kind of a neat switch. Which, again, shows that not all the stories are multi-parters. Some of them are just one-and-dones.
That Katana story mentions the outside as well, and that's the same writer that is doing that one in the Batman issue we enjoyed last week.
Which was really good. So
yeah.
That's good stuff. So I mean, it means that at least a couple of the stories out of this 60-page book, there's like 4 stories. At least there's a couple that we're already kind of invested in, which is good because one's like a Red story, but it is Zdarsky, so it's kind of like.
Oh yeah, and Rosenberg's doing a Grifter story, which is obviously relevant this week.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the first part of that, or the first, not part, but the
chunk,
spiritual start.
Spiritual lead-in.
Yes, later today. We got Batman Superman 17, Mora Jinlin Yang, of course, on this book.
Seems like multiversal shenanigans.
It does indeed.
It's a really nice cover.
Thought. Yeah.
So that's cool. We got Batman vs Ra's al Ghul issue 6. That's finally coming to an end.
Is that not done yet?
I know.
Still.
It's been going on for like 3 years, it feels like.
It's been going on longer than 3 Jokers got delayed. We got Batman Catwoman issue 5. Tom King book still going along nicely. Catwoman issue 30, more around V's book. Again, some of these obviously there's not much to say on, it's just the next book. Crime Syndicate number 2 is out. Of course, this is the mini establishing what the new Crime Syndicate's like in this post Infinite Frontier world. So that's nice. Hopefully we like the first issue in March. Detective Comics 1035, more Tamaki and Mora. Obviously we've got a Maraki and Mora story today, which is kind of, again, spiritual lead-in from Future State. We'll talk about that later, so that's neat.
And the new backup is a Huntress story, also by Tamaki.
Yeah, it's a 2-parter as well, so we know that's going to be 2 months, and then we'll move on to something else. Yeah. That's neat. I like Huntress, actually. She doesn't get enough attention, so...
Not since New 52. Like,
been a while.
A little bit at Rebirth with Birds of Prey, but not since. So it's good to see her name pop up.
Yeah, it's neat. The Dreaming Waking Hours issue 9 is coming out. Far Sector 11. So that is almost done. So theoretically that should be finishing in June.
Yes.
So we'll see if that comes to pass. We have the Flash 769. So was Jeremy Adams the writer on the March issue? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
I don't know off the top of my head.
After Future State, if that's what we're leading to, I'm gonna take a break from Flash.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is that this issue, apparently this has turned into a Wally West book almost without anyone noticing. This is the solicit text for Flash 769.
You start, Jeremy Adams was the writer in March.
But he's not the writer on the Future State issue, though, is he? I don't think he was.
I don't think so. That name doesn't sound familiar from last week.
So after an accident pushes Wally West into the time stream, the former Kid Flash lands in the body of his one-time partner Impulse. Now sprinting through the 30th century side by side with the mysterious and ridiculous Gold Beetle, Wally must uncover what's causing the destructive explosions that keep propelling him through the time and bodies of other speedsters.
Okay.
I don't like it.
You don't. What do you not like about it?
I don't hate it.
It's just like, I don't know.
I'll give it a chance.
Cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I want to give it a chance. I'll give it a chance.
I'm just checking that it wasn't the writer on Flash.
No, I don't think it was.
It was Brandon V. Eddy.
There you go.
Last week.
No, we're safe. Okay, it means it's maybe not terrible.
Yes. Yes. Although Flash's face on the variant cover looks atrocious.
Yeah.
Just putting that.
it does, but that's a variant cover.
Yeah. I do like seeing a Dominator again. That's nice.
Yeah, and Gold Beetle is presumably a cross between Booster Gold and Blue Beetle is the point here. So Matt should be on board.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming. I'm assuming they somehow had a daughter together. I don't know how would that work, but they did.
Shenanigans.
So that's Flash 769, which, by the way, I don't know if they had it last month or maybe it just wasn't on the solicit covers last month, but this new trade dress for all the books, like instead of the box with the number and the logo, it's now like this sort of circular design in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was there last time. I think you didn't notice it as much last time because on the top circle with DC, it actually kind of came out and said Infinite Frontier across that as well.
Okay. So that's just probably the standard going forward now.
Yeah.
So Harley Quinn issue 2 is also out, which, if we're lucky, a patron will make Connor read because it's Riley Rosmo art still.
Please don't.
Joker issue 2 is coming out, which is obviously the Tynan book with Gillen March. And I'll say, I probably said this last time, but I'll say it again. I am giving this a chance because it sounds like it's equally a more of a Jim Gordon story, but they're calling it the Joker because the Joker's name sells. So conceptually, I'm open to the idea.
That's fair, but it's March, so you know.
It is, but it may be good. Not the art, but
I was going to say it's a bold claim.
But overall, I might enjoy the story. I'll take the hit. Justice League 60. Second part of Bendis' new run on Justice League. And again, the backup is there, Justice League Dark continuing with Ram V. So, I'm
excited for this book.
I know you are.
Yeah.
I feel like you're in the middle, Matt, because you've been loving Justice League Dark. You're excited for Bendis Justice League. I'm excited for Bendis Justice League. Connor loves Justice League Dark. So
we're a spectrum.
Yes.
It's a shame because it means I won't be reading Justice League Dark going forward. Because it's a $5 book and I'm not paying that for 10 pages.
I understand that. Yes. Again, maybe Patreon will say no. I'm not going to make him read the Rosmo art. I'm going to make him read the Bendis book. I mean, there's possibility.
You have to stop when you get to Justice League Dark.
They can't make me do that.
Honestly, that would almost be like a mercy thing. I'm going to make you read this thing you don't want to read, but the one perk is you'll have Justice League Dark still to read at the end of it. That would be an interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
Ginger's
try to make him do it.
Ginger's choice. I love that though, Matt. You have to read Justice League. You can't read the Justice League Dark part. You have to stop before Justice League Dark. All right, Man Bat issue 3's coming out. Cool.
That's this is where Kumar's name.
Yes,
where I was familiar with it.
Praising it a lot last week, obviously.
Yeah.
On the Man Bat thing, I think this was solicited so long ago that because it was like a year ago when we first heard about it.
It was supposed to come out by October because I remember it was kind of like the Halloween.
It was pre-shut. It was pre-shutdown that this was solicited originally.
Yeah.
So like a year ago. Yeah. So obviously I hadn't heard of the name back then. But...
Right, but that's where it starts to be familiar. Where
yes, you've just read it that many times.
Yeah.
Yes, so there you go. That's Man Bat issue 3. Nightwing 79, the hotly anticipated Tom Taylor ongoing, which we're all waiting for. Very good stuff.
That cover, what it does with that pinkish purple.
I know. And I love see. I mean, it looks good anyway, but just a little touch of having Batgirl's hand coming in from the side. Yep. That's what he's reaching for. So good.
Reaching out for really it's almost like, well, yeah, and it's almost like the creation of Adam, right? That famous.
I love it.
Yeah, I see it.
So,
it's neat. So that's coming. Man, it's Redondo as well. I cannot wait for that Nightwing book. Rorschach issue 7's coming out, which is neat. Another Scooby-Doo issue 109. Cool. Sensational Wonder Woman issue 2. This is again a physical collection of digital first. Maybe we'll look at issue 1 in March now that we've maybe made that choice with the next Batman one.
Was Redondo on the first issue?
No, because he was tweeting about it this week, so it's only just been announced.
Gotcha.
So that's neat. So yeah, maybe when the first issue comes out in March, despite the fact that it is again a digital first that's been recollected, that may be the time to have a look at it, because I do actually like the idea of a second Wonder Woman book. So
yeah. Apparently the first digital issue wasn't that great from what I've been told, but
we could try it ourselves.
But it's presumably anthology stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, but Redondo on art.
That helps. Yeah.
Redondo's a big selling point for sure. Suicide Squad issue 2 is out, so that's cool.
Nope, don't like that.
I looked at what this was, and I'm like, they've got mind controlling or something. They've got the power of Superboy under her control. This is Waller, and it's like, I do not like this.
Connor Kent's been roped into. And I know this is almost mean to say, because I don't have any ill will against Robbie Thompson, but he's kind of one of those names where he tends to be on books that I just have no interest in.
It's kind of the Steve Orlando. Where he's like, nothing against the person, but I read enough to know it's not for me. So yeah. And then to see Connor on the cover, and I'm just like, nope.
Superman Red and Blue issue 2. Obviously, this is just a Superman version of black and white, but with red and blue instead. You get Chuck Brown, Robert Venditti, Stephanie Phillips, Dan Panosian, and Jason Howard writing. Dennis Cowan, Aletha Martinez, Dan Panosian, Jason Howard, and others on the art. So very cool. Interesting that Stephanie Phillips. Oh wait, no, no, she is usually a writer. I was going to say it's interesting she's in the writer list and not the artist list.
Are you using the Stephanie hands?
I am. Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Crisis of Infinite Stephanies. So
it's just 2 people. Fine.
And there's Stephanie Brown too. There's at least 3 Stephanies.
We have Crisis of Infinite Marguerites this week. So.
We do.
Yeah.
Swamp Thing issue 2. Ram V. Mike Perkins. Cool. Not much to say. Just covers glorious. The variant's even more glorious. Actually, I just clicked on it for the first time.
Oh, that Matina thing. Yeah. Oh boy.
Matina Swamp Thing covers. Oh man, the world's too good to us sometimes. Sweet Tooth, the Return issue 6 is out. Teen Titans Academy issue 2, so we're diving into that stuff. Again, this is like the third time I've said this during the Solicits, but the spiritual first chapter we'll be talking about later today.
I think it's interesting because obviously when these Solicits came out last month, we hadn't seen any of the Future State stories yet, so we didn't really know what was going to have an impact, but now we're starting to get a bit more of an idea.
Truth and Justice issue 3 is out, the book that I keep remembering exists.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this? I'm looking at this as a Constantine thing. Like, what? I don't remember this at all.
Is that also Jonah Hex on the covers? Maybe it's not. I just saw the hat.
Midnight, I think.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Beast Me, Wonder Woman 771 is also out. I'm actually Wonder Woman's a really weird book coming at the Infinite Frontier. Given where Wonder Woman is, and given the fact that we're all falling in love with Yara Flor, the idea of having some sort of weird Diana book where technically Diana's not around in continuity right now is kind of an interesting.
Yara Flor is coming. That is a certainty.
Yeah,
right?
She is. Yeah. But it's a weird thing. Anyway, and the backup is about a younger Diana, so it's a young Diana.
It's the
story.
same as last month.
Yeah. So.
It's the first 10 minutes of 84.
Kind of, yeah.
I suppose it is, yes. And then you're out of the trades and the hardcovers and all that. So that's basically the Solicits, unless there's any particular collections that anyone wants to call out. But
Just skimming in case there's anything buried, but I don't think so.
No, I think that's pretty much it. Interesting that Williamson's Flash and trade seems to be getting to volume 14 by the time it's done, which is impressive.
It's hefty, yeah.
Very impressive.
Yeah, so
not
all of it good, admittedly, but it's a hefty run, no denying it.
It's something. I mean, he was the longest one. He outlasted Tom King. He was the one who was there the longest.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
It's impressive. So, that's cool. But yeah, April's interesting. Obviously, this is a slow rollout of these new books being added. It's still quite a light list of books, which is maybe why we're a bit more inclined to try something like the reprints of the digital first stuff, especially when they look interesting. But it's still quite a light schedule in April. And assuming that there's a few things we don't like in March, like it wouldn't be that surprising if, say, the Suicide Squad book isn't back on our schedule for the following month.
I mean, I can think of at least one book that I'm not that interested in reading, for sure.
Well, Joker, I assume you're talking about? Or?
Well, there's that, but there's another one.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil it right now, but there are a handful of books where I'm like, not sure I need that.
Yeah. For the record, though, before we do move on to the books, I do want to say that regardless of what I'm going to say about any of the Future State books this week, I'm still going to try the first issue of every book in March and see what they're like. Even if I didn't
I'm glad you made that commitment.
The lead in.
Yeah, I'm not making that commitment.
you can do that all you wish, but I will commit to it.
That said, I'll say what I have to say when we get to that book, and what it means for the book going forward, because they're vastly different from what the Solicits.
Yeah, it's what I said last week. I don't think you can take these 2-issue minis necessarily as a sign of exactly what the ongoing books that these same teams are going to be on come.
I think it's a difference between whether you like the ideas or not, as opposed to if you like the actual writing or storytelling. There's a key difference, because I can judge in 1 or 2 issues on a writer or an artist if I like their style or not, but I maybe can't judge on I like this story or not. There's a big difference between those two things, I think.
There's a difference. I don't think it's murky though. I think there's almost like a weird burden of being shoved into something like Future State, and you have to come up with this weird future, and you have to do all this, because good writers can write a bad comic. It definitely happens. Good artists can have a bad issue. These things do happen, and I don't know if being forced into a weird 2-issue thing in a weird Future State, and I say Future State not as the title, but as like a concept that ultimately. I get why that might not be the best conditions to show this team's work.
Right, and I get where you're coming from, but also first impressions matter.
They do, but you can also be an intelligent and empathetic human being and know that it isn't always the most be-all and end-all, and you can give something a proper chance when it actually starts properly.
I'm sure we'll talk about this more later.
Books. No, I'm just looking at... Were we on the show talking about Legion 12? And I couldn't remember if I read it or not.
I can't remember.
No, that's before we started.
That's before, okay. Well, there's a surprise for next week.
Huh? Is it out yet?
No, Legion 12 wasn't released yet. That's why I don't remember reading it.
Are you sure?
It's staring at it right now.
Yeah, no, I got pushed. I remember there being a Legion issue in the month. Yeah, I think he's right. Okay.
Well, so, when
I will finish it.
I'll be honest. I was talking to Pete last night about what books were coming next week briefly.
Yeah.
And I skimmed this page and I saw Legion, and I didn't clock that was Legion 12. I just assumed that was the Future State Legion issue because I know we're due one. So I just thought, that'll be that.
Like things get delayed. What do you expect?
I went to go to next week's books just to have it ready because my computer can bog down at any time. And, I just saw it there and I had to have a laugh real quick. So
yes. Okay. All right. Well, I suppose it's time to get into the books then for the week and start working through these Future State books. I guess by general consensus, before we start even going into the individual books, before the timestamp for the first book hits, is I'll say I don't think we reached the highs of last week.
No.
But just like last week, there's a mixed range of quality and a mix from high to low.
I would say overall, I'm definitely feeling in on Future State, even though I definitely don't like everything Future State.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely books I dislike or just aren't as big on. But I definitely feel overall I like what we're doing for a couple of months.
I like it overall, but I definitely was more positive last week in terms of, and maybe it's because the highs were higher and I felt even more.
Yeah. No, I agree there.
I will say there's nothing I dislike as much as like the Flash book, for example.
Yes,
I would agree with that.
Because I might disagree with certain stories, the way they're being told, it doesn't make it bad like it was in Flash. Like that just was not a,
That said, though, I do have a lot more mediocre I mixed on these books this week that fall into kind of an apathy level. So, we'll get into it. We'll see how they are. So,
cool. Let's get there.
Future State, Dark Detective, Issue 1, Mariko Tamaki and Matthew Rosenberg are the two writers for the first and second story, with Dan Mora on the first story for art, Carmine and Giandomenico on art for the second. I will also mention here that for a lot of these credits going forward, I've left off a lot of the artists because once we start having like 5 artists in a book, I'm not listing them all. It's not happening. We'll talk about them as we're looking through the book. So, yeah, Dark Detective, so this is the other Batman. This is kind of the Detective Comics Batman book for Future State. And, I like Tamaki, I like Mora, and the first thing I'll say about this is, once again, we have stunning art on the main Bat story here. This was beautiful stuff.
I think it's Bel Air on the colours, and they pop. Like I think the second page of this, where we stood by the chain fence, there's all the lights from the sea.
Well, I mean,
great stuff.
Obviously it's hinted at the start there, but once you get later in the story and he's actually grappling around all of the Times Square-esque, obviously it's not Times Square, but the Times Square-esque like neon billboards and stuff, it's gorgeous stuff.
Yeah, it's very cyberpunk.
Yeah, like in the diner with all the lights and holograms and stuff.
Yep.
So the magistrate have hunted down Bruce, and they announced the death of Batman. This is kind of what we hear, is that the city thinks Batman is dead and that Bruce Wayne died a couple of days later. And it's kind of Bruce being down and out, and we get the sort of, the short teases of like when he sort of went to get the bullet wounds taken care of by a doctor, a black market kind of doctor, and there's even like a line here where he says, how does it go again? Live long enough to die a hero, or no, die a hero or live long enough to become vigilante number one. Was the way he phrased it.
What I do like about this book too is how they're parsing out between this and the next Batman, and then even with Robin Eternal later, how just what exactly is going on in Gotham. Like, we don't have the full story, but we're getting enough to know, like...
Yeah, we know that the magistrate's taken over. There's like a fascist state kind of running Gotham. We don't know quite how it all happened or what exactly.
How it happened. Right, and we know that they've weaponized, certain people that are all masked, so, like, the cops can wear masks, but who we think of the heroes aren't allowed to wear masks. It's very kind of Watchmen, the TV series-esque. I was getting vibes from. There's kind of some story stuff crossed over with that, which I think is interesting. But I feel like who's ever editing the Bat books is doing a real good job at it. They're all vibing along the same lines.
Yeah, this took a major editorial effort. I mean, Future State across the board, but individual families like Gotham especially.
Yeah, I think the Bat books definitely feel the most connected, I think, out of all of them, just in terms of the world, because like there's a couple of references in some of the other books or like things, and obviously Yara is like a connective tissue between like all the books she's in, but this is the one where it feels like the city's like status quo is like gradually being kind of told through all of them in little snippets.
I think it's interesting because they're set at like different time periods as well. They're not all like concurrent.
No, but they're all like, again, they're parsing it out just enough, and if you're reading them all, you're getting the full story. But if not, you're still getting enough of a story that it doesn't matter. But it's just the little tiny things, and I really appreciate that in something like this.
I think the story here flows very well. I think Tamaki's writing's always been very well paced. You have a lot of the narration from Batman, a lot of great big action, the big splash page where he rips off his casual civvy suit, and he has like sort of bat armor underneath, but it's a bit more, it's less slick and high tech. It's a bit more just armor with a bat like painted on it. It's a bit more lo-fi, and we have him like again in these I mean, that full page where he's jumping down from the top of the building, and it's like a low angle shot looking up, and it's just all the neon lights of all the different buildings around him, the blues, the reds, the greens, the yellows. And he even hits a billboard because he fires his grapple gun and like slams into something. And even the way the art has all these lines come up from the billboard, it gives you this impression of like a digital like distortion on impact. And it's not even a realistic thing from the sense of like it wouldn't be coming out of the screen. I guess maybe if it's like a hologram style thing, maybe it would. But the idea is that it gives you a feeling of like the sort of the impact that his body on that billboard has to the image on the billboard.
Right.
Yeah. Matt, your mic's going.
Yeah, mic's going, Matt.
Yeah. No, the art is particularly great. I'm really glad as well that just slightly relayed that they confirmed Dan Mora will still be doing Once and Future. They'll just be taking a longer break between arcs, so we can do presumably just an arc of Detective, and then he'll do Once and Future and alternate between them. I think is the plan.
So I need to get reading Once and Future because I know
you would love it.
Yeah, it's come highly recommended. But I knew Dan Mora from Klaus, the Grant Morrison
stuff. Yeah, that's also great.
Santa book, and it's really really good. So to see him doing Batman and it fits like it's completely different from that fantasy where I kind of know him from, right? Like Once and Future and then Klaus, and here he's doing like future neon. Like I get it.
You can correct me wrong. He was on the Buffy book for a while as well.
He did at least the first arc, maybe the first two arcs.
Okay. Right. So again, but that fits more in that fantasy side of things that we're kind of linking him with. This is very different. To
see here, and it looks just as good as what I've seen from him before. Like that's how I think. To me, that's a sign of a fantastic artist that their style just works in.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and this is a lot dirtier than because going from the Buffy book, which was very notable because one of the things that he did very well in that book, which is not something that most books have to concern themselves with, but with that one, it perhaps did because it's a book based on a show, is that he had some really magical moments where he would capture the likeness of the actors so well in moments that it was kind of eerie, like how much Buffy looked like Sarah Michelle Gellar and the way she would smirk or something like that. Obviously, with this book and other books that he's done, in most comics, that's not an issue. You're not trying to match like a real person.
It just has to be recognizably Bruce Wayne in this instance. Sure, that's close enough.
But it's almost aggressively Batman, like that where he rips off his regular clothes and he's wearing the bat suit underneath. It looks almost like Jim Lee Batman, but it's not. Like it's just the way that it is. It's very very Batman, and it fits. So.
And it gives you this idea of that rise of the black market, because the woman in the diner that he talks to briefly, when he's got enough credits to his name to buy a cup of coffee because he's got no money anymore.
The real question is though, do you Jim bro?
Of course you like that.
I don't know, just this hologram being like, hey, you Jim bro?
I will say this has made me, I was already excited for Detective. I already felt I was always already comfortable with both creators, but this has just made me more excited for
it. As someone that was like, I don't want to buy another Batman book, I'm kind of like, I'd rather get this one than I'd rather read the Tamaki Mora one than the Tynan one, to be honest. So
I'm probably more excited for Detective now than I am Batman. I still want to read Batman, but
me too.
So no, this was really enjoyable. And honestly, the only thing going against this issue is that Nick's Batman's main story last week was so goddamn good that this is still kind of the secondary one, but it's really good though.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and I do like that it feels different. The whole like the neon, even though it's technically the same city, really focusing on the cyberpunk visuals of this one really makes it stick out.
I think the only thing going against this one, in comparison to the other one, is there's less of a story so far. It's the mystery, just the world. It's like what's going on. It's thrown us in, and that's very intentional.
It's a lot simpler. It's Batman's been taken down, and now he's the underdog again, right? And he has to try and fight back and take on the magistrate. And
probably we haven't actually seen him start fighting back yet.
Yeah, and probably fail, I imagine, assuming the next Batman's set later.
Right.
Yeah, probably is. I know they released an official timeline. Beforehand.
Could probably go check that, I suppose. But so that was the main story. The second story, which is the Grifter story, which I have no real familiarity. Grifter is a character who I only heard of when the New 52 was announced. He's like, hey, Grifter's got a book. Oh, who? Whatever.
To me, I don't know who, like, for Grifter as the most '90s hero, it's a toss-up between Grifter, Lobo, and Cable.
Sure.
Like their names ring up. And I like Rosenberg from what I've read.
Well, yeah, just to make this clear, Matthew Rosenberg's writing this story,
right?
And I have liked his work on a couple of Marvel minis that I've read from. So this was the sort of thing where I might have been really unenthusiastic about reading this story, but I saw his name and then obviously DJ Domenico on the art.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a fair shot, and we'll see how it is.
Without this creative team, I probably just would have skipped this and just read the first story. But that said, it's still kind of not my jam. Like I don't know. Grifter's not my kind of character, but the story reads well enough and the art's good enough, Yeah. But yeah, I felt weird about this one.
It's okay. It was. I mean, the first narration box. This isn't as bad as it looks. It feels like okay, we're doing a Hawkeye kind of references. I like to set you up as the tone and the mood of what to expect. But it's not as good as that comic.
Right.
Oh, it's definitely not as good as that. I thought it was all right though. Like I genuinely like this more than some of the other Future State books this week. So,
by the way, are we not rating these individually this week?
We can, but I forgot to do it at the time, so we'll do both at the end. So,
but no, I do like in the story too. Like it continues that sense of what Gotham is now. Like that's still going because you have Luke Fox being brought in the same time as Cole Cash, and now. They know each other from that story in what was it, Detective? Was that 1027? Or that?
I think that was in Batman, wasn't it?
Or was it Batman? It wasn't Batman, wasn't it? How many times?
Yeah, I think it was Batman.
Right.
Yeah, because Fox brought in Grifter as a bodyguard.
Yeah,
I think
because of everything that happened.
Because this has a lot more story than the first one, actually. The first story in this book, I mean. This has a lot going on because we have the whole idea that he's got an alias, but then he's found out, so he's arrested. He ends up in the same van as Luke Fox, who's also been arrested for his history as Batwing, and they end up being sort of like lumped together because Grifter makes this daring escape, and it ends up with them going to was it the Queen of Clubs they're referring to, who it turns out to be Huntress, but they're looking for the Queen of Clubs. And they end up turning to they run into a Black Mask gang, and there's a lot of action, there's a lot of quippiness, there's a lot of one-liners from Grifter. He's kind of it's almost like a Han Solo-esque character, but set in like a present-day city kind of vibe that they're going for with him.
He's a scoundrel.
Because I can see the Hawkeye reference, but I do think the character's a bit more Star-Lord, Han Solo-esque in terms of his attitude. Which is fine. I mean, it's one of those things where I think the art's pretty good. I think Williamson's a good writer, so I actually thought it was really easy to read. So, sorry, what did I say?
Yeah, you said Williamson.
I said Williamson, sorry. But Rosenberg's a good writer, so I think it's I'm down to read part 2 of this because I'm going to be reading the next Dark Detective anyway. Also, I'll read the rest of this.
Yeah,
it was a decent enough time.
It's fine. I just
I don't think it's sold me on Grifter as a thing I want. But that said, though. If this backup's going to continue as a backup in whatever book it was popping up in,
it's in the anthology one.
It's in the anthology one. I'll keep reading it there. If it's part of that anthology, I'll keep reading it. I'm happy enough to do that.
Yeah, I will as well. It's not got me hooked yet, but it's solid enough. I mean, maybe this could grow on me.
I could see Rosenberg making me care about Grifter by the time he's done like a full story. But obviously, this is one issue. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, yes, Yara Flor, that was achieved in one issue, but not everyone can be that good.
No,
that was pretty spectacular.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. I not bad though, because I was kind of I got to the first page, I kind of rolled my eyes. I was like, oh, I like the names actually, so maybe it'll be okay. But I kind of was hesitant for a minute, but I'm like, did I really care about reading a Grifter backup? But it was okay. I'm not like over the moon, but it's okay. Yeah. Perfectly fine. All right, so we'll rate them individually first. So Matt, what are you giving the?
So Dark Detective, I'm going to give an 8.
Sure.
And then Grifters, I'm going to give a 7.
Okay. Individual ratings, Connor?
Just for that, I did check that timeline real quickly. DC are being weird. Every Batman story, or every Gotham story, is set in 2025, with the exception of Dark Detective. Like even Grifter is set in 2025. Dark Detective is set in 2027. The next Batman is the only thing out of the entire Future State thing that they did not put a date on. They intentionally left it off the timeline.
Ah, well, so it's going to be a surprise
interesting.
when it's set then.
Yeah. As for my ratings, I think I'll give the first one an 8.5 and the second one a 6.5.
I'll go the first one 8.5, second one a 7. But we should probably rate the book overall as well, since that's how we're going to rank it later. So Matt, what's your overall rating for Dark Detective?
Man, I really like that first story. So I guess I'll give it a 7.5. I guess that just cuts the middle.
Car?
Yeah, that's my plan as well. Cut the middle, 7.5.
Yeah, I'll go on 8. It's between 7 and 8.5. I'll lean higher because I really like the first one, and that's more important to me than the backup, which was still pretty good. It didn't ruin my mood, which sometimes a backup can ruin my mood. So, there you go. That's Dark Detective. Future State Justice League issue 1, Joshua Williamson writing the main story, Ram V on the other one, and we have Robson, Rocha, and Marcio Takara as the art on each story as well. So this this was again another one that was curious to get into, but Williamson's obviously a writer that we have some sense of awareness of, his style, how he writes. But I think this issue, this is the main story, I think did a pretty good job of really kind of establishing the team. It helps that obviously some of these characters we have an idea of. Some of them are completely
brand new.
The Flash character seems pretty new. Obviously, Andy as the new Aquaman. We don't really know her character, but we at least know where she comes from, so there's some context for who she is.
And it's just me, being a continuity nerd, trying to figure out when this takes place.
Yes.
To John's age, to her age, like,
because John should be about what, 17 years older than her?
Yeah.
16, 17 years old? Yeah, whatever age he is when he came back from the future, yeah.
So, but if you don't get hung up on that, the story still reads great because you kind of get the individual vibes, like here, the way that this Justice League comes together, because Williamson's hinting at like this. Someone brought the Justice League down from the inside, and so it changed the way that they operate to where they come together for these big threats, but they're very impersonal with each other.
Well, to a point, part of what this issue does is that it kind of sets that up and then reveals how half of them break that rule almost immediately. Because it sets up that, yes, the Justice League essentially were taken down because the ranks got too big, there was too many members, and someone who learned all the secrets took them down from the inside. The page that it shows that, like this one panel, we know it's not Batman, Green Arrow, Superman, Martian Manhunter, or Wonder Woman because they're all facing whoever it is.
Opposite side.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a mysterious foot in the foreground. So
and the fact that I know that Williamson and Bendis work together for a while, like Bendis as a character shows up in Nailbiter, right? It makes me wonder if this is part of something that Bendis is going to play with.
I suspect it probably is. It feels like it's hinting at something. This is such a specific thing to put in here without it leading to something that's going to happen in the main book going forward. So
it feels like we're going to be abandoning the Hall of Justice in the not too distant future then.
Right. And so this gives it, so like, whereas Gotham has this like police state, like Blade Runner-esque, this Earth just almost seems like a dystopia, right? Where it almost feels like Gotham and the rest of the country got swapped. Where Gotham's like, yeah, it's a police state, but it's still bright and colorful, where everything else here seems like dingy and just kind of left to rot.
I'm pretty sure.
I think it's interesting.
I'm pretty sure this is the same Earth as the Gotham we're reading in the Future State books, Matt.
No, I know. But what I'm saying is, whereas we think of Gotham now as kind of like this shithole, right? Where it doesn't seem like it's that anymore. Like Gotham seems, for as dark and gritty as it seems almost cleaned up because of the police state, and it's bright and it's hidden under the neon lights. Whereas here with the Hall of Justice, which was that paragon of hope
it's
and
this decrepit building,
right?
It's just a mess.
So what's the rest of the country look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it gives this dystopian vibe to Future State that I hadn't gotten until this.
Right,
yet,
and just to glance at this timeline that I got, this Justice League book is set roughly 15 years after most of the Gotham stuff.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm seeing on this anyway.
Yeah, well, that's right. Either way, I still think it works, but I do like Williamson. For me, the strength of this is the character work that he does. Like, because I read this last, I kind of saved this, And I wanted that Yara Flor vibe, and I got it from Williamson here. Like, it's not the same as it was in her own book.
It's not as strong, but it is, you know,
yeah,
it is there.
The voice is there.
It feels like the same character. John feels like the same character, and just the fact that he's kind of in his dad's shadow, and he kind of wants things like how it used to be. And then you have Jo, who this is the first time we're seeing her interact with any other DC characters that aren't, you know.
Which
also, she's the detective of the team.
She's the almost the de facto leader. Like, they kind of all look to her for guidance.
Which does, you know, we should talk about the fact that that kind of sets up the idea that Far Sector is set in the future, because up until then we've had no context for when that is. It's just been kind of, you know, she's off in this other part of the galaxy doing this.
It's amorphous. Like, we kind of get the vibe that she's not the typical Green Lantern because of how her ring works and kind of what brought her there. But outside of that, her origin could have taken place at any time, right? It could have been present day. It could have been a little bit in the future. We don't really know. But here now, it almost seems like it's there. And the fact that we know that Thorne intends to bring Jo in later.
Yeah, it begs questions for the setting of that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, unless there's time travel, which is also possible because it is comics after all. Yeah.
Right?
So yeah, inhabiting the old Hall of Justice, we've got the future Legion of Doom, which is Despera, Amaze-X, Cobalt Blue, the Street Shovel, which is a Talon, the Flood, which is mentioned. I mean, obviously it's an Aqua villain, but like it's mentioned later that this is Andy's arch nemesis. Ultraviolet Lanterns there as well. So
and Ivo
and Moro, the other ones. And that's the thing. So it sets up that they're going to make their big push to kill the Justice League, but then the main story is that the Justice League find them all dead. Whatever third party they were bringing in to help kill the Justice League killed them instead, and that's the crime scene. That's what Joe's investigating. That's what they're all kind of on edge about.
The line that killed me, and it shows just how dark that Williamson can be, and I appreciate for him, is they go, "I'm pretty sure we're standing in the flood." Just because it's the water covering all the, and I was just like, "Oh man!"
It's a neat touch. So one of the things that really sets up though is that they're not all supposed to know who each other are in terms of their real identities. But over the course of the book, we find out that that's not true for everyone. Like Superman and Wonder Woman know who each other are. Aqua Woman, I guess, and Flash know who each other are because they hang out. And Flash
knows who Batman is.
And Flash points out, like, you know, you break that rule for me because. They're trying to like convince Andy, like, hey, maybe we should like get to know each other a bit more. Maybe that'd be a better world. And John at the same time is kind of like, hey, maybe we should expand. I mean, I know we're not supposed to, but it feels like we're not big enough to deal with, you know, certain threats. So
because John's like the only one who really remembers the old ways. Because while he wasn't part of that league, you know, he was around. He knew them. Yeah. And Joe maybe has some like
familiarity,
whereas a lot of them feel a lot newer than that. Like maybe they just weren't there at all.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, adding back into the mystery of who the Batman is, which we know who it is. I mean, admittedly, it's been 15 years, admittedly. Maybe it's different in the Justice League book, but...
It's whoever the new Batman's Robin is.
But
that's what Batman is now.
It's very possible. But it is notable that this book, it does not like have like a, because I mentioned how it goes to like a personal conversation for several other characters. There's none of that with the Batman, and it would never go with him to his own personal space where we see how he's dealing with things.
Guaranteed, it's coming after they reveal it. Probably inside the next Batman book.
Very possibly. But the big ending is that characters who appear to be other members of the Justice League show up and knock out, not kill, but like take care of all the various members. And it's like, wait, you're seeing a Superman there? I'm seeing a Superman here. What's going on? And they're all taken out. And it turns out that the villains who were being sort of brought in by the Legion of Doom to help, who killed them, are the Hyper Clan, a gang of white Martians.
Masquerading as heroes from flippin' Morrison's Justice League way back in the 90s.
This is a deep pull.
Hell of a turn. Because as I'm reading, like, who is this? Like, who could is Williamson setting something up that we're all gonna know? Is it like gonna be a shock, like it's Damian or whatever? Because he's at this point, I knew he's doing Robin, right? Like,
sure,
right. So I'm like, what's he doing? And then when I turn the page and it's the Hyper Clan, which is a story I haven't read going up like 20 years at this point now. It's been a while. It made me stupidly excited. Just like, and I get it. It's the shallow, hey, I know what that reference is. But just the idea that this this team was created to basically be an anti-Justice League by Morrison, just to be revealed to be white Martians, and here that's what they're now.
Yeah, I'd have had a problem with it if it didn't make it clear what it was. But immediately it's and we're the Hyper Clan, and it's like they go white Martians. They hit all these boxes that because like I say this is a story from what 30 odd years ago, give or take.
Let's not go that far. It's from '97.
All right, 25.
Okay.
24.
It makes me feel better, Connor. Round down.
I'm rounding for dramatic effect.
You round down. It's 20.
Why is it dramatic effect? Why is 25 more dramatic than 24?
Because it's a nice round number. And 25 sounds worse than 24. It's like 100 sounds worse than 99.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound worse to you because you try to like stretch it to make it sound like your first estimate was right.
I was just trying to make it
Matt
sound
was right.
a long time ago.
It was closer to 20 than 30. Matt was closer to being right. Right? I have settled this dispute.
The point here is my point. That is irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What I was getting at is that was a long time ago. There are lots and lots and lots of people who will read this who have never read that story. So it was really important, I think, to put this in a digestible way that if you've got no idea, never read that, never heard of it, doesn't matter. It works, and that succeeds.
Right. So in this world where heroes are kind of not trusted amongst themselves, anyways, now you're introducing this concept of the Hyper Clan and the White Martians and how deceitful they are. Yeah, and how they're going to be able to basically take over the identities of the Justice League.
Yeah, the final panel is them all forming into the Justice League and flying off to be the heroes of the world. Is this one that's getting 4 issues or just 2? Is this just a 2-parter or 4-parter?
I'm not sure.
Don't know.
Is this back on week 4 this month, or is it just an issue 2 next month? Because there's a couple that are 4 issues. Most of them are only 2, though.
I will have a quick look.
Go ahead, because whatever they're going to do, I'm here for this. I really enjoyed the story.
Yeah, it was good. It's interesting that this is not a Bendis story, because obviously a lot of these two-parters or whatever are all from the teams that are taking over.
Right.
It's interesting that this maybe has a hint of what Bendis is going to do with this traitor that maybe he's asked Williamson to put in, but
not necessarily. And then, it's only 2 issues, by the way.
Only 2.
Oh man! And then Rocha's art, I feel, is pretty good because Rocha's been this artist that I don't want to say the house style because there's more flair to it, but it's very kind of what you would think of a Justice League artist.
Right, Tivis, the second time you said his name, because the first time you said it, I thought you said Rocha's art. I'm like, wait, Matt. One of us is very confused.
Yes, I got the Barbara Ann statue, and I had to bring up issue 8, but no, not here.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Robson Rocha. So, and it's very just it fits Justice League, like the characters, because they're not iconic. I think new.
Rocha's a very dependable artist.
Yeah,
it's not like a particularly flashy style. It's not like it doesn't wow me, but it's really solid and dependable for any kind of mainline DC book. In Justice League, your Superman obviously was on Aquaman for a while. Any of those sort of characters.
Yeah. So no, Justice League was pretty solid. I think it did a good job. I don't think the storytelling is like completely perfect or as exciting as some of the other better ones, but I do think it was a very solid introduction to the dynamics of the team, how they feel about each other, who some of these maybe lesser known characters. Seeing adult Andy was really cool because Andy's this new character, this baby, and seeing her living at the lighthouse and like getting a call from Aquaman and Mora was a neat little thing.
They're doing something with Jackson as well, so it's like that's why he hasn't assumed the mantle. Like they gave it to Andy because for whatever reason.
Yeah, they're off in Atlantis or doing whatever.
Yeah, and it just feels like legacy storytelling, which like Wonder Woman felt like that last week, but a lot of them just felt like this is just future state. Whereas this felt like this could have easily just been a future story in Justice League, and everything just clicks.
Yeah. So no, I enjoyed it. What are you rating the main Justice League story?
I'm giving this one an 8 as well as the. So yeah.
Connor.
Just a 7 from me. I think it's pretty good.
I'll agree with the 8. I had fun. So, Justice League Dark back up then, which was interesting jumping into for me because I've been enjoying Ram V stuff on Catwoman. I have not been reading Justice League Dark. I have no idea if any of this is any kind of follow up to anything that's been going on in Dark, or if it's just a completely fresh thing because it's the future.
I don't know if because a certain character that was involved But I was getting big Demon Knights vibes, Connor. I don't know if you were.
I agree. I think we're talking about Merlin here. I think.
Well, not just Merlin, but the character that goes with Merlin.
Right, but Merlin specifically showed up in, I don't know if it was the last issue or the one before last of Justice League Dark, and was kind of teased as going to be having a role going forward, but we didn't get to any of that. So that's the biggest connection to what has been going on, and I think it's more. This is maybe teasing some of the storylines that Ramby's going to be doing in the near future.
Right.
Yeah. So the basic gist of this is that Merlin's got like an army, like hunting down magic users and burning them at the stake, and I guess wants to be the only magical person.
Almost like he's purging magic that he can't control.
Yeah.
You know? Like all magic flows through Merlin, and so that of course puts our heroes at, you know, odds and ends, you know, and this one almost feels like it takes place closest to now out of the Future State books thus far. Because this almost feels like it could have been the next arc,
this one takes place 2030, so a little bit after the Gotham books, but before the main story in this by about a decade.
So, but yeah, so we get Zatanna and Detective Chimp going and trying to unravel this mystery and find a way kind of to fight Merlin back, and they end up at Rory Reagan, and I was like, how do I know that name?
It's Ragman.
And then
I'm surprised Matt didn't clock that immediately.
I only know his name because of Arrow. Yes,
because when you type in Rory Reagan, that's the first thing that comes up is Arrow, which annoying. But, I was like,
all I could think was, oh yeah, where did he go? He just left. He just wandered off out of the show randomly at some point and never came back.
They go to the shop where, you know, he kind of deals in black market sales of magic stuff.
Overlook the inciting factor of this is they've burnt Zor-El, the angel.
The angel, yeah, that's pretty big, and so
yeah, I will admit that was probably the most alienating thing for me at the start of this, is I had no idea who they were talking about.
Oh, well, that's from Morrison's Justice League as well.
Right, and it was also does it matter? Because all the context is there. It's like, hey, they go, hey, it's Zor-El. You know, they burn an angel. How did they manage to burn an angel?
Right.
That's all you really need to know.
Well, and then they introduce another thing, which I just absolutely love, is that they've bonded Etrigan with Detective Chimp, and they've changed the rhyme.
Gone the Simian.
So gone Simian, yeah. And it still runs the Etrigan, which I will say I'd like to pick, if I could pick anything of Ramvy's mind for this, why does he have Etrigan rhyme sometimes and not other times? Because certain writers will have it just come out like it's just a formality for Etrigan, right? But here he does it sometimes, and other times he doesn't.
No, there is a pattern to it. Anytime he says more than one sentence, it rhymes. If it's just one line, it doesn't.
Okay.
So it's like if he's speaking in pairs or longer, there are rhymes.
Because sometimes the writer will make it rhyme across the board. You know, whatever that ends the first sentence and that bubble, it'll rhyme with the rest of them. So that's why. But there's been other writers that just go, all right. It might have been even Taylor in Deceased when they brought in Etrigan with Constantine, where he's like, all right, enough with the rhyming crap. You don't need to do that with me. You know, like. But anyways, pairing him with Detective Chimp, I just thought was fantastic. Like,
I hope this is something that happens.
Yes, because I can't think of two characters that would hate each other more than Etrigan and Detective Chimp. You know,
I don't know, Etrigan and Jason Blood.
Yeah, but like it's a little bit different because Jason Blood is a magic like dude, right? Like that's part of the thing.
Yeah.
Detective Chimp is just like almost science gone wrong, and that's what led to him. And then he's thrown into this magical world, which I think that's why Detective Chimp sticks out so much in Shadow Pact and whatnot. Mm. But yeah, that's another thing. This felt almost like a Shadow Pact book too. Like it was hitting like the greatest hits of DC Magic books that I've enjoyed. But yeah, so they end up, of course, coming across Constantine, who looks like he's seen quite a few battles. You know, he's all scarred up, but he's still the Constantine we all know and love. And Xanadu's there, also holed up in this camp because they figured out they could kind of hide in plain sight amongst the downtrodden, which was another thing I thought was pretty cool. all to reveal that they're hiding somebody, that it's very important that, Merlin not get, which I thought was a nice little wrinkle.
All right, Dr. Fate. Yeah, he's there.
But that was a nice.
I was letting someone else take over, so I'm not just rambling.
Well, you took it. You started driving the ship. I thought I'll just let you go.
Yeah.
Well, I was waiting for Connor more than anybody because I didn't expect. As I'm reading this, I'm like, how's Pete gonna pick this apart?
I actually think this is. I mean, it may not be to Pete's taste. That's a different thing. But I do think it's very accessible to anyone who hasn't been reading Justice League Dark. I don't think there is anything particularly obtuse that are references that you need to have known beforehand.
It feels like a relaunch almost, and I feel that's.
This could have been a Justice League Dark issue 1, and you'd be fine. Yeah,
exactly. So, but no, just the interpersonal between all the characters, it's Zatanna and Constantine, all that, and then you bring in Etrigan, and it feels like Etrigan's at odds with all of them. I was getting the Demon Knights vibes, but then some of the other stuff felt like Shadowpact, because then you throw in Ragman and the way that they're able to get his suit, because it craves souls. Etrigan brings a soul up from hell that's almost like a Hulk, right? And it charges up the Ragman suit.
Yeah, there you go. I got souls to spare.
Right. So it felt like these other books, and it different than Tynan's, because even when Ram V took over, it very much felt like that was Tynan's Justice League Dark.
Still. Yeah, I kind of mentioned this quite a bit while you were gone. That those last few issues felt like the end of Tynan's run. Really was this stuff with Ram V's stuff, even though he was writing it, and I don't think he was using Tynan's notes. I think he just interpreted his own ending and extrapolated outwards.
Right.
But it felt like, no, they were all Tynan's plot threads that he was finishing off, and coming back after Future State will be the start of Ram V's real run, so to speak. Or maybe this is as well. This is kind of it feels like a prologue, a tease of things to come, perhaps.
Yeah.
It's hard to say for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and the art fits. I forget who the art was. Who was the art, Pete?
Oh, it was Takara, Marcio Takara.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's really, really moody. Like, we get this, again, a dystopian kind of vibe.
I really like it's also strong, thick lines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Looks very well.
It was okay. I'm giving it a chance, best I can. I really am. But
honestly, it did really make me want to go back and reread Demon Knights, because it's been a while.
Yeah, it's just conceptual. There's a lot of things here that I'm not as in tune to, and I don't really like I hate reading Etrigan's dialogue. I hate it with a passion. So
you don't like rhymes.
It's not that. It's the lettering as well. I don't like the way it's phrased. I mean, it's not just that it's rhyming. I mean, it's not so much that it's rhyming. It's the way that the turn of phrase to make sure it rhymes that more bothers me.
I do feel like this was lighter on the rhyming. Like I said, there are some that summarize where every single line will rhyme with the following line, whereas this felt like it was like a 1 and 3, for example, or a 2 and 4 like flow with how they did it. So it didn't feel like it was into the mold as strictly. Yeah. So it felt a lot easier to read compared to a lot of Etrigan stuff, at least to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't really have any particularly thing bad to say about it. It's more just a taste thing than anything else. I'm just not as invested in the ideas that the book's given me. I'm
really intrigued by who this knight is that's leading Merlin's army. It feels like it's going to be someone that we know. Setting it up, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it is.
We don't know what happened. Like, they just say that they become unbonded.
It's Cold Snap. It's obviously Cold Snap. Why would you even guess anyone else?
Yeah,
I would kind of love that.
Or what if it's Azrael? Right? Like, just add that little wrinkle there. A man of belief in with the magic users and whatnot. Like,
that's Gary Busey.
That's Gary.
I guess.
Is he still alive?
Yes, he's still alive. You can't kill a Busey. Busey's never die.
Okay, I'm just saying. I feel like I've heard tragic passing Gary Busey, and then we all moved on. But if you tell me he's alive, I'm also going to believe you.
Leftovers is proof.
Yeah. Wait, what's up? What'd you say, Connor?
There's a joke in the leftovers where Gary Busey is one of the people who is taken. So the idea being that he might be important to a divine entity.
That's terrifying.
It's a bit of a running gag. There's wasn't there an inflatable Busey in the
There was. Yeah, there was in the second season. It was great.
This is not the show I thought it
was. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I have very little to say enthusiastic, and it's just purely a lack of interest. And it says something that when I eventually did start talking, I immediately just wanted to start cracking jokes. So, honestly, maybe it's better for people if I don't read Justice League Dark. I'll try the first proper issue back and see how it is, but
you guys can just split Bendis's Justice League and Justice League Dark now. Like,
yeah. You do get Zamanico on art in the when it comes back.
Zamanico's a good selling point. I will say that.
Yeah,
Zamanico's a good selling point. But that's just something about talking about a lot of the subjects that came up, with magic realms and spells and Merlin's armies. I mean, hell, even just the name of the word Merlin just made me roll my eyes a little bit and made me disinterested. I'm like, oh, Merlin, really? We're doing Merlin things.
I just want to say, as much as I'm going, hey, Zamanico's great. Takara does a great job here as well. Like that panel of Etrigan breathing to reveal, breathing the fire to reveal fate is absolutely wonderful.
Cool. And the whole stuff with the tarot cards too. I feel like the design of the tarot cards looks really, from what I've seen from tarot, but just enough that it fits in with this. So like even the demon looks like Etrigan, right? When you look at the devil card, it says Etrigan vibes to it. So, but no, just it feels great. Jeez.
Very few fictional characters would make me less interested than the mention of Merlin. Maybe like Boba Fett, for example. Maybe that would do it.
Don't you dare go there. Boba Fett's a saint.
I have
Robert Rodriguez as
Boba Fett just gained legions of new fans over the past few months.
People that hated Boba Fett before, they're like, Boba Fett's just a suit. Well, Robert Rodriguez is like, no, let me show you why it's awesome. And he planned it all with his sons and action figures, which, look, Robert Rodriguez.
What does Robert Rodriguez have to do with Boba Fett? Did he direct Mandalorian episodes?
He did, yeah. A Boba Fett focused one.
Well, this is all great to hear. I'm never going to watch it.
He only had 22 pages of story, and he turned it into a full episode because, it's Robert Rodriguez, and that's what he does. So I just wish I liked his movies more.
Yeah, I don't know why we're praising Robert Rodriguez. I mean, Robert Rodriguez, I like some of his movies, but he is he is the definition of hit and miss.
He's done the best Boba Fett work ever. So that's enough for me.
Yeah, he also did Sin City 2, so,
Yeah, talk about that.
He's kind of like one of those people like Del Toro, for example, where don't like all of his stuff, but I think he's like a really fascinating person to hear talk and really passionate.
So I don't know if you've watched it yet, Connor, but the Chef Show on Netflix, there's a whole episode at his house where he makes Jon Favreau pizza, and they just talk about filmmaking and comparing it to making food and stuff. It's fantastic.
Oh, fair.
So yeah. Which then you go back and watch the Chef Show and the people that he's talking to, and you're just like, I wonder if this was all in the production planning.
Yeah.
All right.
But anyways,
I'm
Justice League Dark.
I'm sure Gandalf will show up in the next part of the story and maybe less interested. So what are you rating the Justice League Dark story, Matt?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Connor?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the 8.5 as well.
6 from me. So full book rating, Matt.
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I know that doesn't max out, but I really enjoyed this book.
Well, your average is theoretically at 8.25, so it's either up or down from there. I mean,
right. So I'm gonna go up because I really liked it.
All right, Connor.
I'm gonna go with a 7.5 overall. I think.
I will also go with 7.5 overall. Obviously with the Sleep Dark
for very different reasons.
Yeah, pulling it down for me, but hey, there you go. Future State, Superman, Wonder Woman issue 1. Dan Waters writing with Leila del Duca on the art. Or is it Ducha maybe? Is it a Ducha sound?
Finally, no backups.
Duca or Ducha? Yeah, no backup on this. This is just a straight, regular size comic book, which is neat.
So, I'll give Dan Waters credit because I'm not familiar with Dan Waters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But based off of what Connor said, I do like what he had tried to do here with the mythological aspects, meeting the sci-fi aspects. I just don't know about the dialogue and characterization.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I've got a sticky feeling because Connor was very enthusiastic about what he said was definitely his number one this week, early on in the week. And I immediately assumed it was this one, so I've got a feeling that Connor's about to be extremely positive. And
I am going to be very positive, and I will be very intrigued as to hear as to your critiques, like genuinely.
Yeah. So I like the story. I just felt like the voice for John and Yara were both a little bit off compared to so I read this and then I read Justice League this morning, and I just felt like Williamson almost had a more of a vibe on those two characters. Mind you, it's not like I know much about Yara.
Yeah, I actually think Yara in this feels more like Yara from her own book from last week than the Justice League book.
I don't know, that moment where I think it's the guy in the helicopter, the pilot is like, I'll shoot you, and she just goes, oh, please try and shoot me, and it's got the big grin on her face.
And then the payoff to that is the writing the lines on the chopper. I will not try and shoot Wonder Woman. I will not try and shoot Wonder Woman.
I will not embezzle from the people of my city. Yeah.
And no, that was spot on. But it was as they started interacting. I don't know. It just felt off to me. And
it's weird because these are the only two bases we have to compare as to what is an interaction between Yara and John like.
Yeah, because
ultimately I prefer this one.
It's kind of weird because we're at a point now where we don't really know what Yara's like interacting with, because at her own book she was only interacting with other mythological beings. She's not, the idea of her interacting with people on the regular Earth and other superheroes is something we're only getting this week between two different books, and we don't really know which one is maybe the more preferred or the more accurate, or which one's going to be the more consistently stuck to as we go forward. And to me, her interactions in this issue with John kind of gave me some vibes of maybe what to expect from her in terms of what she thinks of the real world, and the idea that she's very defensive of the idea of these mythological beings, this moon, the sun characters, that them existing when John doesn't really kind of John immediately assumes it's like a mix-up situation. He's like, oh, it's maybe it's an imp, someone pretending to be a sun god. Like he doesn't believe immediately
from Drift and stuff, and then but he's fully able tyrant son, that's a thing. So I did like the dichotomy there. There's a lot to like here. I don't know. It felt off, and it wasn't because I read Justice League first or whatever, but just reading this, I don't know. It didn't flow. I don't know.
I will say I like this quite a bit. I don't have quite the same hard on for it that I think Connor does.
I will say I think a lot of this that I really want to praise as well as the art and some of the flow. There's the page early on where Yara jumps up to the helicopter to catch it, and the way it's split into the 4 vertical panels, and it jumps across and then follows back through. Oh, I really love that layout and the way it transitions through.
The layouts are very good. I will critique some of the faces are a bit off for me. John,
very blocky.
Yeah, after John puts Good Morning Metropolis in the sky, and I love the idea that he does that every morning. That's a nice touch. But the middle panel in that, when he's sort of looking around over his shoulder, I think his face and head look really weird.
I actually agree that there are the odd panel like that, and it's weird because there are other moments where it's so nailed. Like that one that I said I loved with Yara, grinning, or please try and shoot me. Directly above that, there's 3 panels. The middle one, her face looks like a bit puffy, it's kind of the best way to describe it. And there are definitely moments where it's like, oh, that just doesn't feel right. But then a lot of the big moments, it really lands. You can see where they've spent the time, I guess.
What I like about this issue is kind of how it's structured, where it shows you John's typical morning, it shows you what Yara's doing on her own, and then we have this issue where she goes to visit the sun and the moon, who are literally these 2 gods that are just kind of hanging out on a farm, and they're shooting the shit a little bit, but then the sun god gets really upset because he looks up at the sky and sees 2 suns. Right? He's like, wait, who's this menacing second imposter? Who is this asshole? So he gets on his flaming lion thing or
whatever
horse.
He is.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I did like I did like the little corrective thing when Yara's trying to ride the moon's animal, and she's like, "Oh, you're just like my stupid Pegasus. I'm going to do this on my own," and just sort of leaves it. I like that corrective because that was one of the best jokes in that issue last week was the Pegasus stuff. But yeah, we're introduced to this Solaris, this artificial star that has fought John many times. Because even when Yara first sees it, goes, "Oh, this is one of John's villains. This is one of his rogues gallery," which is a really neat idea, actually. The idea that he's got his own rogues gallery that he's built up over the years. And we have this, and I'm not necessarily big on these big mythological ideas, and I don't tend to be in love with these kind of things as much. I think what makes it work for me in this issue, right? There's two things that make it work in this issue. One, just like last week's Yara Flor issue, her attitude and the way she interacts with them is not the same as how it's normally handled, and it makes it grounds it a little bit more for me in a weird way. Two, this sun god basically trying to like have a dick measuring contest with this other son.
Be a better son.
It's pretty funny, right? There's like a weird petty humanness to it that I think makes it kind of work.
It's just like, whereas I'm faster than you, or I can be hotter than you.
Yeah, but isn't that true to mythology, though, you'd say, Connor? Like, those are the type of stories, because I found when you read mythology, it's not like the stories ever really build up the gods. It almost doesn't show how fallible and human-like they can be. So, like, this felt very in that spirit to where the sun god runs off, and then the moon gods, who's the opposite, is just like, hey, you want some of this distilled kashaka?
Yeah, you know? No, it's very... One, it's unusual to see the moon god being male. Most cultures have the moon as a woman. So I thought that was interesting, because obviously I'm not familiar with this mythology. Right. But just more to your point, a lot of mythologies, as much as they are gods and are worshipped, a lot of these stories about them are how terrible people they are. Their personalities are kind of not very good, and a lot of the sacrifices and things and worship in their name is out of fear as much as it is love or respect. Right. It's very different from most modern religions where it is a love or respect for your god, and that's the basis of it. It's very different. I mean, most now the gods are infallible, whereas in ancient worlds it was not at all.
Yeah, I mean that might be just true to form, right? But I guess my counterpoint to that would just be, well, yeah, but normally I tend to just fall asleep when I'm reading the interactions, whereas here I was laughing. Like, here I was like chuckling, and I was.
Well, that's because like even with Diana, just her vibe's so much different. Is that there is that respect built into her, right? Versus with Yara, it's kind of she's just like, this is just another person.
Well, no, I'd go further than that. I'd say the vibe I get from Yara is she almost feels not that she's literally babysitting them, but she almost has like here he goes again, and she has to like go and deal with his shit. There's kind of like a relatability to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what you've just described is like Balder in Norse mythology, for example, with dealing with Thor or Loki. Shit, not this bollocks again.
Yeah.
There are a lot of mythologies that have this take, especially, I mean, it depends on whose translations you look at, but I mean, like you've got the Greek ones of Zeus going, nah, I'm gonna go be a swan and screw this woman because that's what I want, like, because that's a thing that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and it's again they spoke almost to a relatability for regular people, and because I know when it came to Viking stuff, the stuff that I've read was the Vikings would curse their gods more than anything, right? It wasn't that they were, like you said, it was almost out of fear, or I need something, so what do I need to sacrifice to get something to get?
Yes, it was an exchange rather than a worship.
And like here when she shows up at their house and like Pete said, here he goes again, and she has to go bring him back.
Yeah, no, I mean
he gets himself into trouble. That felt very true to mythological stories.
And I think, and I don't really care if that's true to mythological story. I couldn't give a shit about the mythological side of it.
But we do. So
right. But one of the things that I like here though is that they mention that they only exist again because people remember who they are, and that Yara is a part of that. Yara, obviously being tied to the mythological world and seems to care more about that than the human world, is made a point of like helping the gods be remembered. That the ones that should be remembered. I mean,
this is something that actually a lot of modern mythological retellings have played with. American Gods plays with this. The Percy Jackson books. Gods, right? Yeah.
Oh god, American Gods and Percy Jackson. Oh my god.
No, I'm just saying, no, that's a very it's a common element between a lot of modern mythological storytelling is this idea of belief being the reason that they exist or don't exist. As the counterpoint.
Or cease to exist, right? Yeah. So here and I think I read, and I don't know if this is spoilers, but I think Yara's the daughter of one of the river gods, and that's where she comes from. So it's kind of.
I thought based off of, I mean, maybe on her mother's side, I don't know, but based off of the opening of her issue last week, it sounded like it was the Thunder God still to me, and that was the link between her being Wonder Woman was she's the daughter of a Thunder God, much like Diana.
Right. I could be wrong. Well, whatever it was, she bridges that world like Diana, but it's almost opposite. Whereas Diana's this emissary from them to humankind, versus I feel like Yara's the emissary of the gods, or the opposite. Whatever I just said.
Humanity, bringing humanity to the gods.
Eloquently put, Matt.
I probably knew what I was going for.
I did.
And then when you enter John into all of this, where he is, half Kryptonian, half human, and is taking over his dad's legacy, and like when he goes up he has to trick Solaris too, in order for them to, have their contest, which is again another thing that.
To get back to the plot here, John goes up to Solaris and basically says, "Look, you always come back stronger. I always end up winning. How about we stop this shenanigans? How about tomorrow we could fight, and if you're stronger than me, I won't even put up a fight after you win. I'll just let you take me. You'll have me, and we'll end this." And Yara's very critical of his plan here. He's like, "Oh, I bought some time. What the hell?" But it's when he goes up to do his message in the sky, so it sort of bookends the book, because he goes back up in the morning to do that after they're having breakfast, and she's kind of pissed at him. Where he is, we don't really even see exactly. If anything, it's his heat vision kind of malfunctions because, as he mentions earlier, his powers have been like fluctuating both up and down because the sun's been acting funny because the sun god's doing weird stuff with the sun.
Well, because Solaris has red sun energy built in as well as the yellow sun, so he's getting like depowered and then overpowered, so it's just like up and down with the volume knob. Yeah, so at the end of the issue, he goes to make his image in the sky, but when he fires his heat vision, he ends up like flipping backwards and like burning the corner of a building.
It feels like his flight loses out as well. He looks like he's falling.
I got that he fired his heat vision and it spun him. Like he sort of spun back that way because it was so powerful.
It was the final panel that gave me the impression of falling, the angle of it, but I could be wrong.
I mean, we'll find out, I suppose, to start next issue, but I got that it was so powerful that he kind of like was spinning like, out of control, in the same way that a car that's drifting might spin.
Out of control. No, I'm with you.
So that's where we end the. So they're calling this the planet's finest. The story. I thought it was pretty strong though. I thought it was a good bit of character building for both characters. I think mythology stuff that I typically don't like, I've enjoyed in both this and last week's issue with the Ara. So I think that's a very good sign for me that it's making ideas I don't typically find to be that palpable to be enjoyable so far. Although I don't really care about the nitty gritty of it like you two do, when you start comparing it to stuff, and I'm like, oh, whatever. But yeah, it's not bad. And I agree with the action and the art layouts. It's just the faces for me weren't always super hot.
That's fair.
All right, Matt, what are you rating Superman, Wonder Woman?
I'm giving this one a 7.5.
Connor?
I'm going to give it a 9. I was tempted with the 8.5. There is the odd face that pulls it down, but overall, and all the important moments land enough that I kind of got past them, I guess. But yeah, I love this.
Yeah, I'll probably go with... I'll go with straight A. I think I'm impressed with how much I actually enjoyed the God stuff, because see, when she went to go see Gods, I was getting kind of like shades of like the New 52 Wonder Woman that I did not like that much. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, so I'm going to talk
but
to
then it doesn't
gods.
Actually play like that at all.
No, it doesn't at all. It feels so different.
I will say, no matter what else happens in Future State, everything else could be a complete failure. The fact that we got Yara Flora out of it, and this is going to be a thing that goes forward, is like, no, this is worth it.
Yeah, I can see that. So there you go. All right. Future State Green Lantern issue 1 with Geoffry, Thorne, Ryan, Cady, and Ernie Altbacker. The writers across all 3 stories. We'll mention the artists as we go through them because there was too many to, and the reason why it's not just that there's too many to name when I'm saying them out loud, it's because I actually used this list to go into the timestamps, and then on YouTube specifically, when you highlight like a part of the timeline, it'll come up saying whatever I've named that timestamp. So if you have too many names, it just is a big long list of incomprehensible nonsense. So it's not just me being lazy and not wanting to say a bunch of names, just for the record. I mean, it's part of that.
Sure, that's part of it. Yeah,
it's part of that, but you know, like it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, Green Lantern. Yeah, this has got 3 stories. We've got 1 full story and 2 sort of 10 or so pages stories. I will say there was 1 that was okay in the middle. It was okay, the middle one.
I like the back 2. I didn't enjoy the main one.
Yeah, I think the middle one is the strongest. The last one I like, but don't love. The first one I really did not like at all.
The first one's frustrating because in the first couple of pages, I'm like, okay, this is kind of old school art, which, and given that it's got this kind of, like, you know, sci-fi warrior thing going for it, John's with a couple of other Green Lanterns, but they're not Green Lanterns just now because they don't have rings.
No, they don't have the, and Nort is who, or is it Gunnort? Whatever it is, the dog Green Lantern has like gone full on feral. Looks more like a dog than he ever has, right? Yeah. And it almost felt like Thorne wanted to do an Omega Man story within the confines of Green Lantern, and I don't think those work.
Yeah, and we got Salik, who's got, like, you know, because he's got the 4 arms, so he's wielding like 4 pistols. So, like, in the first couple of pages, I was like, oh, this could be a fun little story. Like, I don't, you know, this seems like a fine idea. And they're in the sort of mid battle, and I'm like, oh, that's fine. You know, like many comics, it'll start off in battle, and then it'll give me the context as it goes. I got to the end of the story, and I felt like, where was my context? What's going on? Why are we fighting on this planet? Who are we fighting?
And that's part of what I was hinting at earlier in the show when I kind of said I can judge writing and storytelling as opposed to, you know, the specific ideas I can disregard. But I think you've got, this is 20 pages, give or take, right? This story. This is a full issue. And if this was your issue 1, which is, this is an issue 1.
I wouldn't come back.
You as a writer or storyteller can't give me any context for anything. That's unacceptable.
No, so what I gained from this was that they are involved in a conflict on a planet, right? And something happened to the Green Lantern power battery, so they're no longer Green Lantern energy.
Yeah,
but
and that's something that's reinforced through all stories,
right? And that part's fine being a mystery.
Right.
Yeah,
but the only reason I that sticks out so much is because it's retold in the following 2 stories.
Well, none of them have any rings.
Yeah,
right. But like the rest of it is like there's spaceships, and it's very much just
all I can really tell you about this is that they're fighting a wave 1. They sort of win, and then go. That was basically the amateurs and the kids. The next wave's going to be tougher, and then the ending cliffhanger of the story is just, you know, this army comes out. There's like 1 brief flashback to seemingly a dying Kilowog. Telling John
this whole thing with the god in red that is supposed to be a big thing that we're supposed to give a shit about, and it has, like, they even give a whole page as an introduction. I'm like, what is this?
It just kind of ends with them mid battle, like, okay, it's a bit of a standoff, and we don't know if we'll win. And I'm like, but we kind of just started that way. Nothing's happened. Like, nothing's advanced. There's no context for anything. I don't know. I mean, there was a point about halfway through this issue, I'm like, wait, am I even taking in the dialogue anymore? Or am I just kind of like reading like a zombie and not really?
No, I get that. Like, the only real change from the start to the end of the issue is that Nort is seemingly dead at the end.
It seems like it.
Yeah, he's skewered. John. Yeah, the dude with the red cloak has got a.
The only reason I say seemingly is because this is a comic cliffhanger after all. But I mean, I'm assuming they've got free reign here to kill a few people off and no consequences.
I like John's look. I mean, when I say look, I mean like the beard and the hair. I like the, you know.
Sure.
Well, because we're so used to him being so clean cut.
Yeah.
That like here it's like
Mad Max John Stewart looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
Yeah. Yeah, this just didn't work for me, and then I got really worried because I missed Green Lantern, but judging from what Thorne, you know, in that first solicit today, like. Maybe this isn't indicative, but why was this story?
It has me very worried about
me too.
That book on the storytelling basis of how can you have a full issue and not present anything?
I'm not arguing that I am not worried. I am, of course, concerned that I'm not going to like this new Green Lantern book, but I will give it a chance. I'm going to read issue 1, despite the fact that I didn't like this at all. Mainly because it didn't like it wasn't completely painful or anything like that. It wasn't like I was reading a book where like, the dialogue was like irritating to read or anything like that. There was just nothing. So I mean, yeah, that would be a problem if I read issue 1 of Green Lantern and I feel like there's no story. But my assumption is that this has to just kind of be this snapshot because he's only got 2 issues to do the story or whatever. My assumption is that because we're going to be set in present day DCU and we're going to have kind of like a training of the new Teen Lantern kind of story, that it's going to be a lot more coherent and traditional in how it's told from the start, and maybe we'll see a better example of his writing. But yeah, this was just nothing. There's nothing.
I did not, and it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I stopped it and I didn't finish reading the book until later, which was is a shame because I liked the following too. But I was like, okay, I need to take a break from this one just after that. So, so if we're rating this one, are we ready to do that?
I'll just mention the art a little bit more, I guess. I kind of like it in a sort of old school kind of way. It's not all great, but I do kind of like the sort of I don't want to say 90s of it, but
no, it does have a 90s quality to it. Like
I don't know if you ever read any of these, Matt, but it reminds me a lot of the like the mid early 2000s Star Wars, the Clone Wars comics. I don't know if they were actually Clone Wars branded, but
I know what you're talking about.
The stuff set in that time period. It reminds me a lot of those things, which it kind of suits what this story is supposed to be, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's my point, is that like I can tell what it wants to feel like based on the art, so that I think the art's working for what it's doing. It's just that the story's just not there.
Yep.
So, we can read it now then, this first story. We get it, Matt.
I'm going to give this a 4.5.
Connor?
I'm going to give it a 3, because I think it just fails at telling any story.
Yeah. I'll go with a straight 4. Like, it's not painful, it's just nothing. Like, it's just, I'm not angrily calm when I read a JRJR, like, on issue.
Well, but I'm glad when I saw some sentiments on Twitter this morning that it wasn't just me, because I got worried. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this was just me. I wasn't in the right mind frame to read this.
No, I think this is the general consensus, at least from what I'm seeing as well.
And it's been so long since I've read a consistent Green Lantern book. Like, it's literally been since the end of Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
And I mean, not counting Far Sector, which is kind of its own separate thing, but it's been since what? When did that book end? 2017, maybe early 2018. That ended. So it's been a while.
It's been a good couple of years, yeah.
So the second story is the Jessica Cruz story, and she's the sole lantern in the
Sector House.
The Sector House, yeah. And 3 Yellow Lanterns come aboard, and they're basically here to just sort of like raid it and like pick apart anything they want because they know the Green Lanterns are done. And Jessica Cruz with no ring is basically die-harding around the place, taking the Yellow Lanterns out by surprising them and jumping them. And I mean, this is fun. It's a 10-page story. This was like a really strong little Jessica, and it's been a while since I had one, so it was kind of nice to...
I have a ring now. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, she even takes one of the yellow rings, actually, when she takes out the first one.
It
comes to her. Yeah, which, the thing I always love about...
She takes the rings off them.
You're talking about the end of the issue. I'm talking about she takes it from his finger and puts it on her necklace.
Right, so he can't use it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're talking about the ending where it chooses her, and that's a different thing. That's...
Well, no, but that's what I love so much about the character of Jessica Cruz, right? Is like there was this whole with the emotional spectrum of fear versus willpower, and with her it was that she was so driven by fear that she locked herself away, right? She's constant struggle with anxiety and all this other stuff. And then, her arc has been, courage isn't just having the willpower, it's the looking at fear in the face and operating anyways. So the fact she does all this, takes out Sinestro Corps members.
Yeah, she takes
without
out
a ring.
Yeah, she takes out 2 grunts. In fact, the end of the second grunt, the one who was coming for the big axe, There's a really nice panel of her in like silhouette in the smoke after she's done it, and it does genuinely make her feel kind of badass.
I think the art in this story is pretty great.
Yeah,
pretty good, great.
And she's left to take on the head of this little squad.
Alyssa Drack, who's
there you go,
the keeper of the Book of Sinestro, which all the Johnsy and stuff, and but no, just the fact that the ring ends up choosing her because she's feeling the fear, but she's using it almost as a fuel.
It's you possess the ability to instill great fear.
Right.
It's that she has made these Yellow Lanterns terrified of her.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the story. Is that she has to, because she's got no ring. She does it from the shadows. She literally, because the first one she hides behind a corner and says, "Hey, don't move or I'll blast you." She uses sort of basic intimidation tactics to kind of win. It was psychological. So yeah, the story ends with her getting a yellow ring, which it says it's the end. So I don't know if she's going to show up in another story in the next issue as a Yellow Lantern or something, but
it's possible, or it'll just be because obviously this time we got Jessica, and then we got Guy in the third one.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible we've got like a Hal and a Simon story next time.
Yeah.
Judging that Hal seems to be missing from all Future State stuff, I don't know if that bodes well.
Yeah, it was a nice touch in the narration box at the end as well, where it switches from green to yellow, kind of over a couple of them.
Yeah, I do like that.
It was a nice
touch.
touch.
I do, if you notice too, that her font is almost also in yellow as it goes. So when it finally does turn, like it was yellow on green throughout. Because I had to go back and see if it started white and then became yellow.
It's kind of like I think it's more of a bright green on the darker green, but I can see where it kind of feels yellowy in context with them and the contrast.
Yeah, so simple little story, but it was a nice idea. Again, an example of, okay, the lanterns all went out and they don't have rings. She's stranded on this place, and this is her trying to hold her own with 3 Sinestro Corps members without a ring, and succeeds. And then with the twist ending of, the ring chooses her to. So she does have a ring of some sort now. And will that play a factor in anything later in Future State, or is it just a fun little story on its own and that's it?
It could be just, hey, look, there's potential to play with Jessica as a Yellow Lantern somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I always remember that when they introduced her at the end of Johns' run, right, was that she was going to be one of the biggest threats to the Green Lantern Corps. And that was always something that Johns had just kind of left it with.
He just threw it right at the end in the Book of Sinestro, right?
And so it was just like, So I wonder if like this is a pickup on that, or if this is just a fun storytelling, like, because just the idea of her as a Green Lantern living with that fear, and then her being able, because it's not the first time like a yellow ring has chosen a Green Lantern. I mean, that's Sinestro's entire gimmick.
I was going to say, that's 101.
But the fact that she could weaponize, you know what I mean? Just because she lives with it all the time and whatnot, could this unlock something in her that leads almost to that John story, or is this just another Lantern Ring crossover?
I don't even know if it's referring back to that. That could almost just be us fan.
No, but and that's fine.
Things.
But I like that exists still.
Yeah, and the Guy Gardner story, I suppose we should rate the Jessica one.
Yeah.
What are you giving it, Matt?
I'm giving this an 8. I like this one.
Connor?
I'll give it 8.5 in the art elevator.
I'll go straight 8 as well. I enjoyed it for what it was. And then the Guy Gardner story at the end here, the Book of Guy, is he's still. So this starts off with him still with his Green Lantern ring, and the part of the joke is that all the rings turn off when he's in the middle of a situation. So then he's sort of lumped here. He's on this planet between these two warring factions who are very religious zealots, and they believe that the space debris that's fallen from the sky to be something that their I don't know, the leaders want or their gods want, so they're warring over
a divine relic from what was their god called?
Oh, fuck.
There was
Gardner?
something. Well, I mean,
well,
yes.
That's the thing. So Guy is stranded on this planet, and he's just uses his smarts to essentially become someone who he tries to basically stop them from killing each other all the time. So he spends years learning the language, because we skip ahead 5 years. What's 1 year first, then 5, then 25, I think. Like it goes a way ahead in time, and he spends all this time trying to teach them to for a start, the big thing that really stuck out was let's not use the word heretic, right? There's no heresy. There's just, you can disagree with someone and they can like something, because the whole joke
we
is
can have religious tolerance.
Yes, there's a whole joke where he says that he doesn't like a certain flavor of jelly, and then someone else says they like that flavor, so the opposing tribe say, "Oh, heresy! We Guy Gardner's told us that's a bad jelly." He's like, "No, it's okay. Someone else can like the plum jelly. It's fine."
Yeah.
So it's all right. I mean, I like this more in the first story. But
I thought it was great. Him becoming a leader just by default. Like, and him having to not give into that, because Guy's the first one to fight you when you say that grape jelly sucks, right?
Right. But
so
he
the fact
becomes
that
like
he's
an actual bureaucrat as well.
Yeah, trying to manage through all of that. It's a fun little wrinkle to Guy's story,
Yeah, I wasn't in love with Clayton Henry's art, I have to say.
I feel that's Clayton Henry, though. I feel like it's always up and down. You never know what you're going to get with it, because sometimes it's really good and a lot of fun. And I think, though, I like it here more than I've seen it other places, but I know what you're saying.
It had the same consistent Clayton Henry long face syndrome. That I think it's kind of how I'm referring to it. But other than that, I quite liked it. I thought it worked.
Yeah, ending is that Lobo shows up and kind of becomes their new prophet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and Guy's like, damn it, so close.
Yeah. That's okay. I love the affinity for Guy that you do. So I'm kind of like, yeah, this was fine. It's definitely better than the first story. It's got a story, if nothing else. So.
Yeah.
It has character arc as well for Guy over the course of these 25, 30 years, whatever it is.
It just made me realize, like, Guy is one of those characters, though, that if you know the story you want to do with him, I think it works. Even Pete liked the story. He doesn't even care about Guy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not super. I mean, I don't love it, but it's still it's fine.
No, but you're right. You didn't, dismiss it just because it's Guy.
Yeah.
Like, so, but no, I mean, it's not Venditti's Guy Gardner, right? Like,
no, it's not.
It's kind of lacking that panache. So, but it was fine. But
I think that's kind of in a way the point, though, is that Guy has to not be Guy Gardner.
Right, and it works, and it doesn't have the same, like, to me with Jessica in the second story, it doesn't have that same where it hits, but it still, the story still worked, I guess.
Yeah, I still like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what are you rating this particular story?
I'm gonna give this one 7.5.
Connor?
This one's a 7 from me.
I'll go with a 6. I think it'd probably be a little bit higher, but I think Henry's art here just kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit as I was reading it. I wasn't super into it. So I'll go with a 6. Rating this as a whole is a really, like, daunting thing, because I feel like you've got one full story and 2 half stories, and I just mean in terms of size, not what the completion sense of it. But
I have to figure out what mine is now.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because the first one's so negative, and because it's half the book, I feel like it weighs more than the other two, even if you do like the other two.
I agree. That's definitely like the main story and the one that should have the most weighting. Even though I like the other two considerably more, I don't think it's just a straight. I don't think it's a 3-way average.
No,
is what I'm saying. I think that theoretically, like that first one counts as 4, and the other ones are like 1 each almost.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving it, Matt?
This gets a 6.
Connor?
I'm gonna go with a 5.5. I think I like the other two just enough to say it's above average overall, barely, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be the harshest here. I'm going to go straight 5. I don't know because I don't know. I think my overall feeling is disappointment because the Guy one's okay. I like the Jessica one, but I don't think it elevated the whole thing enough for me to be like excited about this being the first Green Lantern book I've read properly in a while. So
maybe it helps for me a little bit that I haven't got that hang up because I've been reading, the Hal Jordan book, so I'm not like desperate for Green Lantern content. So this isn't like super important to me in the same way.
Yeah. Kara Zor-El, Superwoman issue 1, and this also takes us away from the books that are anthologies with extra stories. Not that they've all been, but most of them have been up until this point in this episode. But so yeah, this is issue 1. This is Marguerite Bennett writing with Marguerite Sauvage. Is that how you say her name? On art.
I think so.
Sure.
So I was looking forward to this because this is about a Supergirl book, and I like Kara a lot, so was definitely intrigued to check this one out. And unfortunately, I'm not that in love with it. And what's funny about this one is that I'm very mixed on it, but the general consensus from the Twitters seems to be a lot more positive than I am. So I think
I'm pretty positive on this.
This is the one that I thought Connor was saying was his top, that he thought was going to be the breakout.
There you go.
I don't think it's. I mean, I'll spoil this now. I didn't like it as much as the Superman Wonder Woman.
Yeah, sure.
But I do like this a lot, but especially a lot more than Pete by the sounds of it.
I like conceptually some of it for Kara's character, and we'll get into obviously everything that goes on in the book. But I guess the most controversial thing I'm going to say is that I don't really like the art.
Wow.
Oh my god,
that is borderline unfathomable.
I do not like the style that much. I don't like the coloring, and honestly, it makes a whole.
Coloring's one of the best elements.
I don't like the coloring. I don't like this coloring at all, and I think part of it's just because it feels too fantasy-esque to me.
Fairy tale,
like
is the word.
Fairy tale. It looks too fairy tale, and especially since that the alien character that shows up has this like shapeshifting ability. Once she's like turned into like a fox and a dragon or whatever, everything just feels like I'm watching a kid's fairy tale movie, and I hate how it looks. I'm sorry. I know this is not.
You need to watch some good kids fairy tale movies. Song of the Sea. Go watch Song of the Sea.
Watching a good kids. I don't dislike it because I dislike kids fairy tale movies. I dislike it because I dislike the look of kids fairy tale movies.
I thought I was to say I dislike it because I dislike kids.
And I know I'm in the market because I've seen people praising the art all week. This was just
I don't think
not
I
for
love
me
it as much as everyone else because I'm not big on the story.
Mike.
but the art is gorgeous.
I do like the art a whole lot because it is so different from anything else, right? Like it really makes this book stand out as something different.
It has some amazing layouts. There's the 2-page spread where it kind of goes round and flows through. I love that one.
But on the story side, I do like the idea of Kara being someone's mentor, right? Someone that's a lot like her, that she feels like she can guide, and this is a much older Kara than I think that we've ever experienced.
It has to be. Just to set up the context of the story here. This is in the future where there's a dome on the moon that Kara is kind of running and like defending.
Yeah, she's the guardian of Moonbase. Or whatever the city is, Moontropolis. Dibs on it. That's what we're calling it, Moontropolis. Sure.
Well, that is basically it. She's like, well, Clark already took Metropolis, and John inherited that. I need a city of my own.
Right, and I love that out of Marguerite Bennett is that she realizes like sometimes Supergirl gets washed out with all the other super characters. It's like, where does she stand? And that's where I think where me and Pete liked when Supergirl went off and was the galactic hero.
Right? That was good.
It gave her something that wasn't just like, oh, she's the girl version of Clark.
I think there's a danger of too many stories doing, she needs to break out of Clark's shadow. But also, I get it, all too often she is just female Superman for all intents and purposes.
The problem is no one is stuck to one idea of what how she's different. Every time she breaks out of the shadow, it's in a different way, so nothing sticks, and it ends up just feeling like we keep going round in circles.
It's she's a Red Lantern, or she's
I actually really liked her as a Red Lantern. That was a lot of fun.
So here though, where she is like the guardian of Moontropolis, like it's like and there's a
Crypto's dead. Let's just get that out of the way first.
I don't like that.
Like the very first thing you see is the great.
Well, and that's who she's talking to throughout. She's having a conversation with Crypto's spirit, and because Crypto is the one that always believed in her, which I love because where we left off with Kara last is she's been running around with Crypto,
Yeah, so. I think the other thing I need to say here is that I don't like the art that much, which I know is blasphemy to everyone else who seems to love it. Marguerite Bennett's writing though as well is something that it's not bad, but between this and her Batwoman, which I thought kind of went very up and down, and especially the way it went as it went on, I got less and less into it. I definitely feel like she's a writer who is very serviceable, but I often find just misses the mark in what the right feel is.
I think she can be overly wordy, and I think that's probably my biggest criticism of this issue. There are points where I'm like, yeah, this is a bit much.
It took a while to read this, even though I don't feel like it should have, because the art, just let the art do its job. Yeah. Right? On a lot of it.
And there are points of the issue. There are points of the issue where she does shut up and just let the art go.
Right. That said, magical girl that can shapeshift and has a crown in her head, and like I'm like, this is a little bit too Miyazaki for my liking.
It is very Miyazaki, isn't it?
Right? And I haven't even really seen a lot of those movies. I just know the references enough from being in nerd culture.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I wasn't a super fan of the concept of this character all that much.
But there are parts that do work for me, though.
Yeah, but it's kind of... But it is kind of weird to me that the arc of this issue is basically Kara saying, oh, I need to be her Crypto. I need to be there for her in the way that Crypto was for me. And I'm like, Kara, Crypto's great, but you're comparing yourself to a dog.
Why not be Lois? Or,
why not be...
I think that's trying to tell us just what, the relationship that she has with Crypto, that a lot of which we haven't obviously seen, is probably different to what we're imagining.
Right, but see, I'm a dog person. I get it, My dogs, when I'm in a bad mood or I'm feeling down or like the anxiety's taken over, I can look at my dogs and they're always right there, no matter what. I get it. But like Pete said, like there's a whole supporting cast of characters that Supergirl has had over the course. And Bennett decided to go with being there for her, like the dog.
I do think it is like
also.
It's like it's like Magic said. The dog is always there, no matter what. Whereas all the other characters have fallibility.
Also, right, let's not forget the fact that Kara's supposed to have Streaky, but for some reason DC have forgotten Streaky exists, and she's been lumped with Crypto for the past.
Crypto's better.
While.
Yeah, that's just it.
I'm not getting on board.
She
with
also
this
had Comet. You're not getting mad over Comet. I just think it's your cat bias.
Shut up, book. Streaky's important. So the aliens that are coming after this princess who's got this power, which was in a duel because their factions were warring over blah blah blah. Who cares? It's all bad. The point is, did anyone else think their ship looked like the Sulaco from Aliens? It's a very Sulaco looking design.
Sure.
For anyone who remembers,
I don't remember it well enough.
Well, okay. For anyone who remembers Sulaco, it looks like the Sulaco. It's more crystally looking. The color is very different, but the shape's very Sulaco, and it looks kind of like a pulse rifle.
Is that the ship that they go into?
How do I spell it?
Sulaco. S-U-L.
Okay, I'm looking now.
Yes.
Which ship is it, Pete? Is the one where
I think that might have been the reference image.
Yes.
Like, it is almost exact. I will give you that one.
Yeah. It's the big ship. It's the big ship. It's not the one they go down in. It's the one that houses everything in space.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm even looking at the points at the front.
Yeah.
Are almost exactly what I'm looking at on this. That is the reference image.
So Disney's going to come calling because this is intellectual property.
It's been a while since I've seen Aliens. I should give it a watch. I do have it.
You should. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Anyways. Yeah, you guys can talk about it. Because ultimately at this point, the fairy tale-esque character, the fairy tale style art is just not for me. And I love the character of Kara, and I like that it does deal with her anger a little bit, and that the final page is kind of her, refusing to let her go off on her own, and like taking on this enemy that's coming after her with her heat vision, saying, I'm sorry that I have to act out of anger and violence, but not sorry enough. Like, I kind of like what that's saying about the character, but ultimately, I thought this was a bit of a slog to get through because it just was so against my taste, which is a shame.
Yeah. For me, there's just some wonderful layouts. There's the page where it's telling most of the backstory about the jewel and stuff, and it's on this stained glass window background
Oh, I hated that page. But yeah, come on.
Oh, I love that page. I mean, I wish there was a little bit less text on that page. I would have just, or more accurately, I think what the lettering could have maybe arranged the boxes in a bit of a more interesting way to kind of go around with the flow of the image. Would have probably been the better choice.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the idea of, okay, we're telling this history and we're going to do it through this portrait of like this stained glass window style, which is, how a lot of, your churches, for example, recorded a lot of their history.
That's why they were there, right?
Yeah, they were there to tell the story to people who couldn't read. And just that idea incorporated in, I think it's really smart.
Pete's like, don't clutter up the page, but don't tell me a story through pictures either.
Just kind of said it like the page. That didn't mean that I don't want it to tell a story.
Yes, I know.
That's putting words in my mouth, you son of a bitch.
We're being facetious because Pete hates lovely things.
Look, and this is the sort of thing where, like, when I saw the reactions on Twitter, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the grumpy one on this. Everyone's going to be against me.
Let's say again, I don't love it as much as everyone else does either, but I do like it. I like how different it is. It's not a typical Superwoman or Supergirl story, and I like the art. I think
it's safe to say I like this the most of the three of us.
Sure, yes. And I thought that 2-page layout where it's like going around as they're doing stuff, I thought it was kind of messy, and it was just like too many lines with not enough, like, the coloring's not making it stick out or like really differentiate any sections for me.
That's why I really disagree, because it fluctuates between the blues and the oranges, and each time it shifts, it's a really defined way of breaking up the panels. Essentially, is it's done with the color to shift them apart, and it makes it really clear when it's transitioning through that.
I read this second because I was really excited for it, and reading this after the Dark Detective art with the futuristic, all the deep blacks and the neon lights.
Oh, they're so different. They're like incomparable.
This was so disappointing. I was like, oh my god, I hate this art. Like, what?
And I go, why not both?
Yeah. I do love both of these art styles. Specifically these artists.
I'm just talking about my experience of reading them back to back. Obviously, I like many other art styles, Matt. Let's not pretend I don't.
I mean, you love JRJR. You love it so much that you act like you don't.
This is...
He
feels bad about showing too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like, play it cool.
Yeah, sure.
That but they did to Melody Moore.
Yes.
Man.
Oh yes, the fact that I literally didn't recognize a character shows how much I love that art.
Keep the readers on their toes.
If there's one thing I love in comic book art, is actually stuck with, who is this? And not because they're shielded in mystery because there's a mask or something. Be like, no, I can see their face clearly, but who is this?
Why is one of the endless here? All right, cool. Let's move on. I got playoff football and then a Knights game.
You got to play a type. All right.
What time's the Knights game tonight?
7. My time.
Okay.
So.
Okay, cool.
Ages away. That's ages away. Anyway, what you rated that?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Connor?
8.5 from me.
That's his personal taste. This is personal taste. 5 out of 10. And that's honestly, given how much I didn't enjoy reading this, I'm being generous.
So, guys, you know what you have to do? We have to crowdsource Pete to get some official art from Marguerite Sauvage. Just so. And then he's gonna learn to love it because he's gonna feel bad that
I think that's cruel on the artist to make them commission a piece. Not it really matters to them all that much, but I think part of that feels cruel to me, to commission a piece of art knowing that you're saying to someone who hates the art. that feels cruel to me. And
I don't get how you can look at this final page of her doing the heat vision and be like, I don't like this art.
I don't like
also,
it.
Also, your listeners, that is code for if you ever see JRJR doing commissions, get one for Pete.
I mean, I have nothing against this artist.
I know it's just fun to poke because you seem to be the outlier.
Not that I was going to say I don't have anything personal against this artist. Not that I have anything personal against JRJR either, but I guess I've had to suffer through more of his art, and it's even worse than this, obviously.
I met JRJR at a con. Very nice man.
Yeah.
Very free with his time and talked with everybody and just like.
And let me make this clear, right? I am not saying this is objectively bad art. I am saying I really hate it. Whereas JRJR is objectively terrible art that I also obviously hate. So there's a difference between those two things. So we'll move on.
There are many artists I say that about.
We'll move on. Yes. Okay. So
original art.
I've scrolled. I've scrolled up here. On. All right. Future State, Teen Titans issue 1. Tim Sheridan writing with Rafa Sandoval on art. So this is obviously from the same team that are going to be doing the Teen Titans Academy. So,
and this really introduces us to what the Academy is going to be.
Oh yeah, but I was going to say this. So they're definitely taking influence from the Cartoon Network show, just with the lineup, the dynamics between the characters, which I think is cool because you don't get that too much. Like you kind of got it with Batman, right? With the animated series, started to work its way into certain stuff. I mean, that's where Harley Quinn comes from, right? Like,
it's so influenced, especially in the last few years where you've had people who grew up with that show are writing the comics.
Right. Here's the first time I can feel that in Titans, where sure it's based off of the new Teen Titans back in the 80s and the Wolfman and Perez stuff, but just here with the dynamics, bringing up Red X, just all of that stuff, the stuff with Starfire and Dick, like it's just I love all of that aspect of it.
This is an interesting mix of feelings because I do think this is a little bit overstuffed and there's a lot going on that makes it feel a little bit messy. But I do typically like the history that it's sort of trying to imply that this obviously the ongoing book's going to be diving into. I think that's kind of interesting stuff. I do like the idea of Legacy Teen Titans, of like all these, of Dick and Corey and that, like having taught these other generations of Titans and maybe like discovering some of who those characters are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of iterations of the team are present in this future. Like you've got Bunker, who's obviously from New 52 stuff, and then you've got Crush, I think was her name, which is from the
Lobo,
the recent stuff.
Yeah, the Lobo style character.
What I didn't like was being reminded of Flash from last week.
Sure.
But they bring up Wallace, and I like grown up Emmy is something that I need more of now. It made me realize how much I miss reading that character. Yeah. Which I know she was always there, but I didn't want to read that Teen Titans.
Yeah, Emmy and Dick are looking for the H dial at the start of the issue, and we sort of jump around. One of the big mysteries of the issue is that Cyborg / Beast Boy are back, or Cy-Beast as they're called, because they've merged together in a weird twist of fate.
What happened there? So is that like...
that sounded like you were going to be really sarcastic at first, and then I'm like, no, I think he's being really genuine.
So is this Cyborg's software on Beast Boy's hardware? Is that what's going on here? Like,
there's definitely some cyborg hardware in these images, Matt. But okay, yeah, go on.
But no, what I mean is like
as if Vic died, like his physical body died.
Right.
They took all the
I don't know,
the cyborg parts and grafted it onto Beast.
No, we do clearly see. Now, admittedly, it could just be like the memory of Cyborg's been left in the machine part. But later on, there is clearly dialogue coming separately from Beast Boy's side of the head and Cyborg's side of the head, and they're different.
I believe it. I think Matt is right in that it's the cybernetic implants grafted onto Beast Boy, but I think it's all the software still is in there, and Vic's consciousness is in there as well.
What happened to merge them? Like that's just that
might be a story we get over the next year or two.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not at all what I was expecting.
It's definitely bold.
Yeah,
and just like the way they treat the Red X mask in this issue is really interesting as well.
Yeah, they treat it as this piece of history where we see like as a flashback to like Dick's birthday party where Corey kind of gives him the mask as like a sort of like as a gift.
Hey, remember this?
Yeah, remember this back in the day. Obviously, we've not had the story yet, but hey, this is something you wore for some time, and it's kind of a joke gift almost because you didn't get him anything else.
Right. And are you guys familiar with the Cartoon Network series?
Yeah.
Not really, no.
So what was it with Red X, Connor? Can you remind me? Because it's kind of hazy. Was it Robin had to go deep undercover
No, I think it was someone else entirely, wasn't it?
I thought they all thought it was Robin.
Maybe they thought it was. It's been a while since I watched, like years.
Yeah, okay.
I was under the impression it was someone else entirely in the end, but I could be wrong.
I'm gonna look.
Yeah,
just because
I think what's interesting here as well, I love seeing Jakeem being there as one of the members.
That was a nice surprise. Yeah,
that was a nice touch. Also, someone called Brat Girl, who I think is new. But I mean, you could tell me otherwise, but I'm intrigued to who Brat Girl is. Because she has a bat logo, but she has like ears that seem to be made out of her hair in terms of like how the ears are made, which is kind of interesting. So that's kind of neat. But and Raven's around as well, of course, and they're dealing with the threat, which I'm still a bit fuzzy on what the threat is. But the end of the issue is that Dick lets out whoever they've got in this cage. Right, because they've got someone. Because we see Raven's down there talking to whoever it is at one point.
To them.
Yeah. And Dick goes at the end and says, "Okay, we have to do this." And Dick gives whoever this is the Red X mask, and they come out as Red X. And Dick puts on his Dick Stroke mask.
Yeah, that's what we're calling it.
Yeah, Dick Stroke. Yep. It has to be. Yep. Because it's funny, because earlier in there, because I'd forgotten about this, because it kind of been spoiled, from news and stuff. But earlier on, I sort of noticed that his Nightwing logo is kind of orange looking. Inside this whatever this new futuristic outfit is.
And he's not going by Nightwing anymore, because every time someone calls him that, there's like a reference. So, well, why are we calling him that again? This is weird.
Yeah. So he puts on this, this two-toned, and he's got like kind of a Nightwing mask in the middle of it as well, but it's got the two-toned, the orange and the blue or the black, whatever it is.
I do really like this costume because it harkens back to like his original Nightwing outfit, obviously.
A little bit. Yep. Yeah, a little bit.
It's pretty unique though.
So.
Yeah,
it was a little overstuffed. There was maybe a little too much flashing back and a little bit too much timeline hopping.
Yeah, it's got a lot of interesting ideas that has me excited for the main book when it starts, even though I think this isn't that great of a story in its own right.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Because like Shazam's like leading one of the teams, and there was a lot of ideas that getting thrown at me, and. I'm trying to look through the book just now to see if I've forgotten, but I don't remember ever really knowing what the threat was.
No, I don't think we do.
No, we don't.
I think it's intentionally a mystery.
Well, no, it's also that they bring up about how Wally killed Wallace, because they bring that up because Emmy's sorry about that, and it's something to do with the Four Horsemen. That's what the main threat is that they're getting ready for, because as we learn that Wally is Famine, apparently. And all this other stuff. So I can't not remember it. It makes me mad.
I think we know that that all of the riders are people we know, because Cybeast mentions that from what we know from Barry Allen's recordings on the Four Riders, our friends may be too far gone. And actually, interestingly, the editors noticed see Future State, The Flash, issue 2.
I noticed that.
Obviously not out there.
Not gonna trick me.
Not
but part of me's like, okay, I'm going to look up though. If it reveals who the other horsemen are, I'm curious.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to look it up, but I'm not going to spend time reading it. When I get to the shop, I'll be like, hey, can I see this real quick?
Yeah.
And I'll thumb through it and look to see who's revealed. But no, but like you're right. There's a lot going on here. The fact that they're interspersing the hero dial stuff, I think, is cool. Because that always felt so separate. Like when you guys were talking about it, which makes me want to go back and revisit it. Like I said, I was going to, and I've forgotten.
Should have.
Yeah. And so just the fact they're bringing that into Titans, and like, is that Miguel?
It feels
he's
like
talking to
Titans is actually becoming a real a catch-all for the young hero stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously we've had Titans, we've had Teen Titans, we've had Young Justice, whatever, however many other teams there are. It feels like they're kind of consolidating it all into, they're all Teen Titans, they're all Titans, and we're kind of going to merge and play with that.
It's an X-Men book.
It's an X-Men book.
We said that with Tynan on Detective because of the cast and the way he was telling the story, right? But here, it's a school for young heroes led by former young heroes.
That's conceptually what. The second we heard about this, it was it's an X-Men book. It's it's the new Teen Titans teaching the current Teen Titans.
Yeah, and this one almost felt as inaccessible as Hickman's X-Men. But this is by design, you know? So...
Yeah.
I find that hard to believe.
This is one where I think the issue itself is overstuffed to the point, but I was constantly liking things it was hinting at or ideas it was doing. So it's less of a good issue in terms of telling a story on its own, but I'm definitely into what's doing.
Trailer, so to speak, for the real book. It has me excited.
Yes. So let's hope here, even if I don't think I'm going to rate this issue too highly. So.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you'd looked into the Red X stuff as well, Matt, but
I did.
Yeah, they never actually revealed the identity. There's just theories, and a lot of it's people think Jason Todd is one of the main ones, but
it was Robin originally, and it was to go undercover with villain. So
for one episode, and then it came back and it was someone else, right?
Right. So the fact that Corey's giving him the mask makes me think that happened in this new history, that he went undercover, and this was a reminder. Which is nice because I as much as I love Barbara and Dick Grayson together, I still will never not fall for Corey and Dick. So
that's we've said it before. That's my preferred pairing, and that history is clearly on show in this issue. Where it's clear.
I mean, the history's on show, but it does not sound like they are currently an item. Which
no. But like. When she gives him the gift in the past, it feels very flirty. Like they have a flirty thing still going on. And then I remember, he married Barbara though, like in death metal. So like whatever it ends up being, I will say it definitely got a little bit extra points just because how well they pulled this off. Where it almost reminded me of the Starfire series when Dick Grayson shows up.
Oh, those issues were so good.
You know, where they're not in a relationship, but there's a history there.
There's a history, yeah.
Yeah, and like, well, no, they don't have to end up kissing, but there's a fire between them.
There's a chemistry.
Yeah. So, but anyways, so what are we rating this one?
You start. You always go first.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give.
Don't try and take control. Like, look, host.
I'm watching the clock, man. This is the most important game for the Rams this year that they're probably going to lose because
you told me when it's starting. I know when it is. I'm not concerned about the time. Please feel free to rate the issue.
I just did. Gave it a 7.
Did you give it a 7? Right. I will not have someone else try to hijack this show. Connor, what you rate it?
I'm going to give it a 6, which is a little unfair on how I really feel because as an issue, I think it's okay, but I'm excited about the potential much more than a 6 would suggest.
No, I'm almost the exact same. I'd give it a 6. I'm excited for the ongoing book, but as I said, it's a bit overstuffed. It doesn't flow that great as a story, but I like all the potential of what it's setting up for this future Teen Titans thing. So hopefully the ongoing book delivers and we're into it, and so there you go. Which will take us on to Future State Future State Robin Eternal issue 1.
Robin Eternal.
Meghan Fitzmartin writing with Eddy Barrows on the art. This is a Tim story. Stephanie pops up as well as some character from Robin Rising or something, whatever the lady's from.
Robin.
We are Robin, yeah. So,
which I looked and I can't find, and I read We Are Robin. I don't remember this character because I feel like I would have remembered a hearing impaired person in a comic book.
I only read the first issue of We Are Robin and then kind of passed out. So
yeah.
I never read We Are Robin. I was kind of like mostly away from DC by the time it got to that.
It's the most I've ever liked Duke because they weren't trying to make him into a different hero. They were actually having him embrace the Robin persona without being the next Robin. So it was like Robin as a symbol, which is real cool. So I like that played on the We Are Robin stuff here, especially with Tim.
What's funny about this one is that I felt like there was a lot of just expectations that it wouldn't be that good beforehand. There was a lot of people just online saying they weren't excited about it. I remember, I think Connor said he was leaving it until last. There was a general feeling that to expect the worst with this one, and I think it kind of came out in a weird way of just being. It kind of falls into just it's just kind of mediocre. It's not the worst thing I read this week.
So I started reading earlier in the week, and one of our Twitter friends had said that they really, really liked it, and I was like, I think I'm being too hard on it. So I went back and revisited it with like not tired eyes, because sometimes I'll end up like not falling asleep, but getting drowsy reading a book, and it'll kind of color my thoughts on it. So I went back and re-thumbed through and I was like, yeah, this is still just kind of in the middle. Like, it's not terrible, but it's also not like great.
While I don't think it's a terrible read, I have points I can, like look at and go, I dislike this element. But there are very few, but I can't say I like this. There's nothing that I can point out and go, oh, I really like this that it's doing. So there's definitely more negative than positive in the way I approach it. But it's not the worst thing ever, but for sure.
I mean, I'm in general, I'm just sick of Steph being a supporting character for Tim. I mean, that's just a blanket statement. I'll say.
I don't think I really like Tim's voice, and the fact that he always it's always Stephanie. There's no not once does he say Steph in this entire issue.
Right.
Yeah.
What's up with the eye patch?
Yeah, Tim is looking into a thing where apparently they're using Lazarus Pit water to build or to infuse like cybernetics with like invulnerability. So there's going to be these cyborgs that are immortal and can't be killed, and that's these whole things try to like stop that. Steph doesn't agree to help, but then shows up anyway after he's recruited the Death Lady, and they end up in a big fight, and there's a big giant cyborg, and the issue ends with Tim getting drenched in Lazarus water, which
it's fine.
It's readable. Obviously, Eddie Barrows is a solid enough artist that
I have some really strange mixed opinions on the art in this issue. In that I think his individual panels are pretty solid. There are some really nice layouts, especially in the back half. But early on, it's really aggressive on the Dutch angles, and it's going back and forth in opposite directions that it almost gave me a headache, like with how aggressive it was using it.
Yeah,
so I don't know. That was kind of bugging me.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I so aggressively have no opinion that it's hard to talk about. This is not like Superwoman where I came in kind of been like, oh, kind of I'm in the minority, but I really don't like it. And it's not like Green Lantern where I'm like really annoyed that I didn't like it. This is just kind of like, it exists. It's there.
I'm glad I prepared myself to not really like this one because, and knowing it was a Tim book and that, I love me some Tim, I kind of knew going in, I was like, don't get excited for it. I was like, don't get your hopes up. So I kept that expectation so low that I'm like, all right, fine. Guess just another Tim issue that sucks.
Yeah. Also, just the Lazarus stuff. Just starting to feel like the magistrate has something to do with Roz. At this point,
possibly.
There's a possibility there. Yeah.
Just knowing his, like, I'm using Batman Begins logic of wanting to make Gotham, like, granted, he didn't want to take over Gotham. He wanted to blow it sky high.
Yeah. But
he wants to make Gotham the example for the rest of the world. So I could just see him coming over and, like, completely taking over in a different way, and that being so different. The Lazarus stuff just kind of drove that home, because if it's not that, then...
otherwise, it's just kind of there, I guess.
Right?
Yeah. So, I guess that'll be the important thing, is maybe it's the first book that hints at who's actually behind the magistrate. But honestly, I just kind of felt like it's just was kind of nothing tie into an overall 2-month thing. Especially since it's not like we're getting a Tim follow up to this. We're Damien's getting a book. There's no Tim book.
There may be some Tim backups down the line.
Maybe, yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me, but yeah, it's hard to say for sure.
I was just kind of indifferent to it as I was reading it. It was one of those weird reads. It's funny because when I look back over this week's like Future State books and I look at, okay, which ones am I actually reading the next issue of next month? Obviously the 3 that I was pretty positive about are definitely getting read. When it comes to the rest of them though, it's kind of like, oh, I mean Teen Titans for sure, but this one is just kind of like maybe, I guess, if I've got time for another one, I'll read it.
Out of this week, ones that I'm not reading next, Green Lantern, I'll have to look into what the backups are, because if the 2 sound interesting, I might pick it up for those. If not, I'll skip that. That's the only one that I like that I'm like, oh, definitely have a firm opinion on from this week, I think.
Yeah, Robin Eternal will just be kind of a case of do I feel like bothering? If not,
yeah,
I'm not strong on it.
I probably won't, because no. I think just to highlight something positive that I will give it. I mentioned the layouts. There's the bit where Tim's on his jetpack kind of does the circle in, and it's nice. And then you've got the insert, circle panel of him clicking the booster button as well. I thought that was had a nice flow to it. Just to say something good.
All right. This is strange.
I do like how they went forward with the sign language in comic art.
Sure.
I do like
that was fine.
And it had that editor's note of it's not perfect. So if you could read sign language, then of course you're not going to get the full, but the intent was there, and so I really appreciate the effort.
Yeah, they basically
kind of do it as a shorthand because they haven't got enough panels to show every individual.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, basically what they do with it's the same way as when someone's speaking in a different language. They just say this is translated from blah blah blah, and just here's the.
But they do consistently always show them talking with their hands. They're just not showing every individual movement of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely like that the intent was there for that. Which is real cool because you don't see that in comics too often. Like we get the language stuff all the time,
right?
But when it's something like this,
it's such an easy medium to do that with as well.
Yeah. Well, and I think after seeing Sound of Metal on top of it, my eyes are kind of open.
I do need to watch that, but I mean, I was just gonna say, like, one of the easiest ways to teach sign language is little pictographs, which is essentially sequential art, right?
But it's not realistic to actually put every single movement of the hands into a regular copy like this. That would take too many panels, would it not?
It would, yes.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, no, just thinking of that and seeing how that is, I feel like again they handled it really well, and I liked seeing that in this book. So to copy Connor something positive, so we're not just dumping on this poor book.
Something positive. It was not as bad as Flash last week.
It was only 24 pages.
Yes, it was a regular sized comic book, so it felt over quite quick. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. That's my positive. Matt, what are you rating Robin Eternal?
I give this a 6.5.
Connor?
I'm gonna give it a 5.
I'll give it a 5.5. I'll just go slightly above that line. It wasn't. Yeah, it was. That's fine. All right, there you go. So Connor's going to do a couple of Patreon books every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Patrons can make myself or Connor read a book at a certain tier. Connor's actually got all last month's to do because, of course, he was missing for a month. So he's going to do 2 of those. The first one he's going to do today is Red Hood 51, which is almost the end of the series. So we'll see what David replaces Red Hood with when the time comes. But for now, take it away.
Yeah, this is. I'm just going to get to the credits page because it's not Lobdell anymore.
That's true. That's right. So
I'm just trying to find where there it is. Sean Martinborough is the writer, and Tony Akins is the artist, who I've not seen in a while. The last major work I remember from Tony Akins is when he was kind of in and out on New 52 Wonder Woman with Cliff Chiang early on. I don't really remember a lot of him since then, although I think he was in the Solicits for coming up, so I'm sure he's on something. But first major positive thing about this book, I mean, other than it's not Lobdell, is Dan Mora cover. Very nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just objectively a good thing. But honestly, this issue is still kind of a mess. It's still not very good. It's like introducing a whole new thing. This is set in the aftermath of Joker War, and there's a district of Gotham that we're kind of following. That we're kind of introduced to the Hill. It's a place that used to be a real shithole, and Jason bought some real estate in while it was real cheap, like 15 years ago, I think it says, something like that. I don't know how old.
Oh, so he's a gentrifier.
Well, yeah, but he hasn't lived there is the point. He just got someone to make sure the place stays intact. And since then, this is the first time he's really come back in a long time. And since then, the whole place has gentrified around him, and that's a lot of what this issue is kind of that shock of like, okay, I don't recognize this place anymore. What's going on? Kind of meeting up with some people from his past. Dana Harlow is her name, and her family. Her sister she's a news anchor on the TV. That's how the issue is introduced. Her father is some sort of prominent figure in the community. People seem to know who he is. And there's a bit like just catching up, trying to establish their history. That stuff's kind of fine. It really telegraphs some stuff with her though, being or at least presumably being one of these vigilantes, because there's like a couple of rival gangs in the street. That's kind of how we open the issue before we get any Red Hood stuff. Actually, I'd say that before we get any Jason stuff, because I don't think there's really any Red Hood in the issue at all. Maybe very slightly at the end. But a lot of it is this kind of, there's a couple of gangs, they're running hits and stuff, but there's like a rival gang coming to get them. And it very much seems like she's running the rival gang. But we got a lot of stuff with, this villain who's introduced, Tommy Max, I believe his name is, who's got one of the worst designs ever. I'll get back to that. Basically, it's like a fashion mogul, and he's kind of wanting to get in, with the underworld, and like sell like Killer Croc branded things because that'll sell apparently, stuff like that. And he has a whole thing where he goes to Killer Croc and is trying to cut a deal with him, and you got Croc, swagging around all suave in a big, like, it's kind of like Italian mobster suit with a hat and everything. It's different, but the design for Tommy Max, I think it's a mask. It looks like it is a mask, but it looks, think Suicide Squad Joker, like the damage tattoo.
Hate that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, except it says like Gotham instead of damaged. It is like the design of it. Like I said, it's not a tattoo. I'm pretty sure it's on a mask, but just it's very evocative of that. And he's wearing like what looks like a snakeskin sort of jacket, or it's supposed to look like it's Croc skin. It's all this stuff. It's kind of weird. I don't know quite what they're doing. This seems like a lot of stuff to be introducing to do in 2 issues. It's intense, and I don't know what their aim is. But yeah, there's an implication that Dana is maybe one of the leaders of the rival gang who's interrupting them and stuff like that. Honestly, it's kind of a bit of a messy issue. It's introducing like 5-6 different things. There's absolutely no Red Hood whatsoever. I've just skimmed, double checked. There is Jason, but I'd say Jason is in possibly half the page count tops, maybe less. So it doesn't even feel like it's a Red Hood book for a lot of this issue. It's a very strange comic. I'm not entirely sure what its mission statement is as a new run. It's pretty murky. Art is fine. Tony Akins is not my favorite. The stuff when whoever the colorist is, I'm trying to find that colorist, Paul Mounts. Whenever he comes to the rescue, is what I'm going to say. Whenever there's like fire or lighting effects, things to really play up and give a sense of atmosphere. Like if there's some explosions or night vision goggles, for example, that stuff looks really good, but it feels like it's kind of hiding a lot of Akins's line work, which is a bit unfortunate because it's not very clean line work, but it's not overly messy. It's just a little bit heavy-handed, a little bit loose, enough that it's recognizable, but and just off, where not far enough in any direction that I feel like it has a unique style to it, and kind of just comes off a little bit bland for my tastes. And layouts are just pretty straightforward, nothing really inventive. Yeah. The one inventive bit is like there's like a laser gun, it looks like, and the panels where it's shown being used are like angled, so they're got like a 3D effect, so they're kind of coming in and out of the page slightly. That's all right. Yeah, other than that, it's a very bland issue, very mixed. That I'm not sure what's done. Oh, I tell a lie. There are 2 panels with Red Hood in that I missed when I was skimming. This is where he shows up to talk to what I think was Dana. It sounds like it very much seems like a couple of lines of dialogue that imply that. But yeah, overall pretty mixed issue. I give it a 5.
All right, there you go. I was looking at covers for my pickers in a minute. Your second Patriot book is Detective Comics 1029.
Yes, Tamaki writing and Kent Rocafort on art, which not that bad. And as pairings go, I will say, just on the cover, I know we don't really talk about covers very much, barring the end section of the show, but this cover either is giving away a plot that's coming up, or it's an active spoiler of the identity of a new character, and I'm not sure which it's supposed to be. Basically, there's a new villain called the Mirror. Visually, think the guy in the Watchmen TV show.
Yeah.
But instead of just the face, it's all over. And the issue opens with him giving a big monologue, saying, I want to be a mirror to Gotham, and I want you to all see that we the citizens of Gotham, not the vigilantes. It's just another anti-vigilante person, but he's wearing a mask, and he's like, even it's a whole thing.
Credibility questionable.
Yeah. And he has a whole thing where he introduces, the recently wounded police officer Nakano, who's running for mayor, is using the unmasked war cry as his platform. But even there, not, I don't know if he's saying that they can't be trusted, or if his endorsements. It's not very clear what his mission statement is here. But what I'm getting at is Nakano is this mayor we meet later in the issue. Now, I don't know if they've been in the run previously, and there's just stuff I've not read, but I get enough here to get a grasp. They have an eye patch. I think the impression is they lost their eye during the Joker War with stuff that went on, and now basically they're saying, Joker War is, this city got out of hand. We need to be anti-vigilante, anti-mask. We need to kind of curb down and get this back to being a normal city, basically. But like I say, the eye patch is the defining feature. The reason I say the cover is a potential spoiler is because the cover is this new character, the Mirror, sitting on a chair, lounging around, like a throne style chair, holding the eye patch, and and saying who's next. So the impression is either they took out the mayor, which I'm pretty sure doesn't happen in this issue. There is an attempted hit, but it doesn't seem to be from the Mirror. It seems unrelated, or is supposed to tell us that he is the Mirror, and is one and the same. I don't know exactly, but it was a weird link. But most of the issue, we got Bruce. He's basically this is where he's just lost Wayne Manor. He's lost all his money. He's packing up his belongings. He's wrapping up all his family photos, putting them in bubble wrap and everything. And his big problem is he can't bring himself to take down the photos of him and Alfred, because all the ones of his parents, whether they're down, he's boxing them up, no real problem. But the ones with Alfred, the ones on the mantelpiece, he's like, no, do you know what? I not today. I'm putting it off for another day. I can't. I'm not. He's not ready to do that yet. Which it makes sense. There is then he goes out, oh, perfect, Batman time. I can distract myself. And so off he goes out, And,
I love the idea of Bruce just finishing his day and going, all right, it's Batman time, rubbing his hands together.
No, genuinely, like, this is the narration. He goes, hate to say it, but I'm glad night's falling. I can use the distraction of the streets. It really does feel like, oh, great, Batman time. And he goes off out on the bike, and there's some just the usual cops shooting some rubber. He gets involved, try and get in the way, but someone shoots at his bike and takes out his front tire. And it's pretty extreme. I do have an art question here. The sniper that's shooting, it looks like he's either shooting a bullet that is insanely long, because we see the physical bullet. It's like more of a rod that it's firing. It almost looks like it's the front of the barrel being fired off. That's what it looks like. And I don't know if it's just a weird art thing, because on impact, I can't see the rod. I don't know if that's there or not, or if it's a weird just thing in that one panel. It stuck out to me, though. But you just have a nice little action sequence of Batman going and taking down these guys in the car as they're escaping in the commotion. Some very awkward dialogue. Basically, Batman gets into the front seat, throws the driver out, and he's driving. There's still two other guys in the back, and they've got the gun. They literally shoot him in the back of the head at point blank range like 6 times, and it does nothing. And he's like, "Oh, shooting the back of my head at that close range, that makes me mad." I really didn't like that dialogue, like actual dialogue from Batman there, And then there's an awkward bit where I feel like there's a miscommunication from the script to the art, because they did, or just a lack of trust in the art showing it properly, because he starts tilting it, he starts tilting the front seat back, and it's just one short panel of this happening. But while he's doing it, one of the goons literally goes, "Hey, he's tilting the seat back. Look out!" I'm like, well, that's really clunky and awkward. Just show us him tilting the seat. And then as he tilts back, so picture Batman lying backwards essentially at this point with the two goons behind him, and he shoots the ears off the cowl, one into each of them, one in the shoulder and one in the other guy's hand, to make them drop their weapons. And yeah, not sure I like that. That's a bit weird. But yeah, the action half the issue's over. He decides he wants to look into this guy running for mayor, Nakano. He wants to know what's he going to be like, especially with this anti-vigilante thing that he's running. So they're holding a big gala on a big cruise liner, usual money-making charity nonsense. But as they're doing it, there's a hit squad comes on board. They come on presumably to take out Nakano, is the impression. And maybe this is the Mirror that's organized it, and that's supposed to be the hint of the cover. I don't really know. But Bruce tries not to get too involved. There's a bit of a distraction, so he manages to throw an apple at the back of one of their heads. But he's like, "Come on, I need backup." And Nightwing shows up, takes him down. Nakano's like, "Screw you! Didn't need your help anyway." It's like, the only reason they exist is because you exist anyway, so it's all your fault, really. And that's about it. Just again, really reinforcing his position. And then the final cliffhanger: Bruce gets back to the cave. He's like, "That's not how I leave my chair." He's like, "I always leave it." He literally goes. He comes down. He goes, "My chair. I always leave it angled at 4 o'clock. Someone's been here and has been looking through my black casebook." And then he opens the book and he goes, "The pages, they're empty. This isn't the casebook." He's like, "There's only one other person other than Alfred who knew where this was locked and could get in here undetected. What's your next move, Damien?" And it's like, okay, so that's what we're doing next. There's Damien's stolen the casebook and is going to do stuff.
That's a funny cliffhanger. I'll give it that.
It is.
Honestly, my favorite part of that entire thing is I'm watching Matt look at the time because he's wanting to go watch his football game in 5-10 minutes.
I know.
And Connor's the bad guy who's just going on and on and on.
I know. But there are very 3 clearly defined sections to this issue. You got the intro,
I know.
You've got the action, and you got the cliffhanger.
And I know it's Patreon, so you feel like the person that
Yeah.
You want to give them their money. I get it, but A, I also have to use the bathroom, and B, brush it up against the time.
I know. I'm aware of it. We're good. But this is literally the end of the issue. Yeah, it's kind of fine. It's really dense. Dialogue feels weird. More Bruce's voice feels off, which is weird given that it's Tomasi.
It's Tomasi. Yeah.
And that's weird because he's wrote Bruce for years with no problem. Overall, it's like a 6.
It's Batman time. That's pretty funny. All right.
He leaves his chair at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll take us out of the part of the show, the final part of the show, much to Matt's delight, which is where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite artist, and top 5 books. So we'll start off with panel / moment, Matt.
It's gonna be from Justice League Dark when it's revealed that Detective Chimp is bonded with Etrigan. Really good moment.
Yeah,
Connor?
That's good. I'm gonna go with from Superman Wonder Woman, the please try and shoot me panel. That got me good.
It's not bad. I don't have a standout because I love Dark Detective, but I don't know if I have a standout moment particularly from that story. Obviously, there's a lot of great art in it. I might even be more inclined to just the HyperClan reveal.
That's pretty cool too. That was number 2.
League. Yeah. So I think either that or maybe just even seeing Andy as Aquawoman in the future is kind of cool. But I'll go with that. All right, favorite cover, Connor.
I'm just looking because I didn't get to look because I had the last 2 books.
All right, fine. I'll go first then, since Connor's looking just there. So, and I'm honestly going to be boring to say the main cover for Dark Detective because it's really, really pretty. And it's that same sort of, same as the interiors. There was a few good options, so I think the main cover for Justice League's pretty good. There's the Jamal Campbell variant for Green Lantern, which is pretty nifty. I also like the variant for Superwoman, which is, I think, Alex Garner, I want to say. But that looks pretty neat.
It is, yeah.
So,
that's
yeah. What about yours, Matt?
Mine is gonna be Justice League. It's just that's a great image. The regular cover. It's got all of them on there. It's very Justice League-y.
Justice League, yes.
Yeah.
Right, Connor, you prepared?
No, that's fine. After all that, I'm just going to go with the Superman Wonder Woman, the regular cover, the Lee Weeks one. I think it's a really nice cover.
Sure. All right. So favorite art of the week, Connor.
It's the Superwoman, isn't it? The Takara. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. Feel like that, Matt. What are you going with?
So as good as that one is, I did love the 1-2 punch of Robson, Rocha, and Takara in Justice League, but it's Mora. It's so good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I have to go with. I mean, we have to consider that it's the whole book. It's not just that one story, I suppose.
It's Giandomenico at the back.
That's true. Yeah,
which is still pretty good.
The backup is still pretty solid. Yeah, so I mean, it's not dragging it down much, if any.
No.
So I'm probably going with Dark Detective as well. I have to say, but yeah, there you go. All right, top 5 books of the week. Matt, hit us with it.
All right, so my number 1 is Justice League, Future State Justice League. Number 2 is Dark Detective. 3 is Superwoman. 4 is Superman, Wonder Woman, and 5 is Superman, Wonder Woman, and 5 is Teen Titans. I think I did that right.
That sounds about right, Connor.
Yeah.
Superman, Wonder Woman, then Superwoman, then Dark Detective, then Justice League, and then what am I left with? I think Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My number 1 is Dark Detective. My number 2 is Justice League, and my number 3 is Superman, Wonder Woman. Oh, I suppose if I'm including Justice League Dark. Anyway, I'm going to swap them. I'm going to put Superman, Wonder Woman at number 2, and then put Justice League at number 3. And then number 4, I'll say Teen Titans, and number 5, Carousel Superwoman, because it is better than the quote unquote bad books. It's just not to my taste as much. So guess that 5th spot. All right, there you go. I'll tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics, most of which we'll be looking at because it's mostly just Future State books and a couple of things that we also read anyway. So coming next week, we have Batman Catwoman issue 2. So I'm interested to see how we start to weave in that Phantasm stuff from issue 1. We got Rorschach issue 4, which I'm very excited about because I've really liked that book so far. We got Future State and the Next Batman issue 2, which is good because we're on to that. Deceased Dead Planet number 7, the final issue of that arc, that mini even. Future State Nightwing issue 1. Future State Immortal Wonder Woman issue 1. So that actually is Diana, I think, right?
Yes, and that's the Jen Bartel art.
Yeah. Yep. And then Legion of Superheroes issue 12, which Matt may or may not read. We got.
I know, I definitely haven't read it.
Yeah. Future State Superman Worlds of War. Superman isn't the title. For some reason, I remember this as being Future State Worlds at War or of War. But
that's what I thought it was too. But hey.
Yeah. So that's there next week, and then we got Future State Catwoman issue 1 and Future State Shazam number 1 rounding everything out. Although technically there's one more book, and that is Looney Tunes 258, but obviously not something we would be looking at. But so yeah, another big Future State week. Although there's a few less, I think that's because they have these other books coming out as well. So we'll look at those next week. So that is that, which pretty much leads me to wrap up the show. I suppose maybe one thing, and I won't draw this out because I know Matt's ready to run, but I will just say, Matt, and Connor, much like I did last week, which one of the Future State books do you think will be the stinker, the disappointment?
I don't think any of them are as obvious, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think Shazam is the one that probably.
It's really tied to that Flash story in Teen Titans.
It is Tim Sheridan though, who obviously did the Teen Titans thing, but so I don't think it's fair to say it'll be a stinker, but I think it'll probably be my least favorite.
I don't want to say Catwoman because it is Ram V, right? Like, so you don't want to say that, but or Nightwing because I want them to be good.
Yeah.
Doing the
But,
Nightwing,
but Nightwing's not Taylor though, so I mean, Nightwing could be terrible and it wouldn't make a difference.
Yeah,
Right.
Nightwing might be the one that we don't enjoy.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have Nicholas.
I feel like out of the other ones, like I could see Superman Worlds at War not been that great. It would be a shame.
That would be,
it is,
that would be really disappointing.
But that'd be the shame. That'd be why it'd be so disappointing because it would be a bad sign for the ongoings that are coming. But I kind of agree. Shazam and possibly Nightwing are the ones that might stick out as being the stinkers. But hey. All right, so I'll take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to I need to scroll up here. Thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Tradesman, Christopher Moy, Brett Williams, and David Brown. They are Patreon producers for the month. That means they're $20 or more at patreon.com/mailedfuzztv. And you can support us over there for as little as $1 per month to help show your support, keep all the content coming. At the $5 tier, you get the podcast a day early. Previously, the Multiverse is coming back soon, and that day early access will also apply to that when that comes back this month. So look forward to that too. Also mention that you can support us for nothing by simply hitting the like button, subscribing, commenting on YouTube, rating the podcast 5 stars with a review on iTunes. All these things do help us out a lot and help share the podcast out and help grow the audience. So please do any and or all of those things. But otherwise, that is that. Just get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Follow along there. And it is worth mentioning that before the next episode, we will have your annual episode. It'll be too late to remind you in this episode to go vote, but there is the voting was up. We're recording that tomorrow, so that should be a fun time. That'll be up sometime during the week. And again, patrons will get it a little bit early. But so there you go. That is episode 236 of Comics from the Multiverse. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Bye.